Please make your way to your seats. Good morning. Welcome to the Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners meeting. Today is Monday, June the 9th. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones so we don't interrupt each other. And if you would, join me. I'm going to open us with a word of prayer, and I'll ask Commissioner Cole to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, once again, we thank you for the ability to come together as free men and women and decide our own fate. Guide us and direct us. I pray that what we say and do here will be pleasing in your sight. And we ask this in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Please join me in pledge our nation's flag. For which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll start on my right. Commissioner Salter, do you have any changes, additions, deletions?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole?
No changes.
Commissioner Lynchard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One add-on, kind of a two-part. One, I'm going to ask engineering to update us on the status of planning and repair to the damaged roads and washout areas and drainage facilities in the county. And as part of that, I think we're going to need to take some action Thursday to authorize our county administrator to proceed with awarding one or more contracts to a low bidder meeting specifications on repair work.
Okay, sir. Mr. Walker?
Chairman, I had two items that came in, actually three items that came in Friday afternoon. We had FDOT emergency local reimbursement grants for repairs to Munson Highway at Eastgate Road. We had another contract for the Chumuckla Highway Norris Road intersection repairs, and then the final one were the repairs to 399. And those were all Federal Highway Administration grants that are administered through the FDOT. So we'll need those three reimbursement grants added to Public Works if we could.
Okay, sir. Okay. Public Works, and that's...
And one item to add to the administrative committee that came in Friday afternoon was a Florida DEP Division of Environmental Protection contract for the annual monitoring of the Navarre Beach renourishment project.
Okay, we'll make that number 16 on
Thank you.
On the administrative committee. Ms. Jones?
No, sir.
Roger. Ms. Bell? Okay.
Yes, Commissioner, we had one typo in the engineer's report. Item number 2, it says change order for CH2M Hill. That's Morgan Contracting, Inc. It's on the CH2M form, but it's Morgan Contractor is our contractor.
Say that change again. Now, the name is what?
Morgan Contracting, Inc.
Morgan Contracting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did everybody get that? Is that it? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
also on Public Works, in addition to the three items Mr. Walker added, we can delete items 1 and 2.
Okay, sir. All right, item number 1 and 2 to be deleted.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I have one item, and that's a discussion of appointment of Jennifer McFerrin of the Pensacola Chamber of Commerce as a private sector representative on the Career Source Escarosa Board of Directors. There's a support letter in your backup material signed by Susan Nelms, who's the director of that organization. I would move this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. We have the Administrative Committee next, and we have 16 items this morning. Item number 1 is discussion of proposed judicial facility sites with our consulting architects, HOK Incorporated.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, sir.
What I'd like to do this morning, do you have the? Great. Next slide is go through for you, as I discussed with Mr. Walker, an update of where we are looking at the two sites, the Byram and the Pace. I'm calling it the Pace site now. We've got two Highway 90 sites. And also a look at downtown Milton again to look at what might be possible on that site. To give you an update of where we are in the planning process, because while we've been looking at sites, we've also been looking at the detailed plans of the building so that we're not wasting any time as we move along. And then to ask for some direction from you as to what you want us to continue studying. We can obviously study a lot of different things, but if we can focus in on things, that would be helpful. So the three sites, Byram, Pace, and downtown. Next slide, Roger. If we look at the Byram site, and I'm sorry for people in the audience, it's a little small on here. What we have done with these two sites is use the same floor plan for the courts building on both of them. So that thing is identical in both cases, and any cost calculation is likely to cost precisely the same, with one exception I'll get to in a moment. We've laid this site out to allow two outparcels on the front of the site. It has a central boulevard entrance up to the courthouse so that as you turned off of 90, you'd turn in and you'd look straight at the front and center of the courthouse. But there's two potential outparcels there. Then the public parking. There is space on either end of the building for future expansion of the courts, however that's decided. Archive space, probation, future courts expansion, it gives you that flexibility to move. And then behind the courts, you have those private and secure accesses for prisoner delivery, for service to the building, and the private parking space, secure parking space for judges and others. Different from the Pace site, this site, you've got some flexibility as to how far forward or backwards on the site you'd want to be. We have shown here a direct road from 90 all the way to the back of the property, which would allow access to the back of that property for future development. But, this is laid out with basically the courts in the middle, third or two-thirds of the site, with outparcels in front and then future development behind. That outparcel development out front could be very similar to what you have here, where you've got food service and a bank on the property. It could be office buildings, lawyers' offices. It could be government office buildings. So that's the Byram site. If we go to the next one, please, thank you. Here's the original study that we did on Highway 90. It's the same thing. The only difference here, obviously, the courthouse property is pushed to the back of the piece of property that you were looking at. Everything else is the same. Boulevard off of 90, parking out in front for about 500 cars in total. The court building with room for expansion, and then the access behind the building, and pushing the detention, the retention, stormwater management stuff to the back of the site. Both of these sites, as I said, the courthouse piece of it would be the same price. Site development costs, Hatchmont McDonald can develop to see how they compare, if there's any difference. They're fundamentally very similar sites. The one thing that we have done some research in the last couple of weeks on, though, is the potential for foundation systems and with the need for maybe some geotechnical evaluation, because a three-story courthouse building, believe it or not, is a heavy building. It's not like a lightweight manufacturing building. It's a heavy building, and at 3 stories in this part of the world, we're right on a tipping point between using spread foundations, mat foundations, or the need maybe to go to deep foundations. We know from the studies that we did back in 2000, 2001 that could be a number that could add a premium of anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million to the project. We don't know that yet. These two sites we couldn't predict. Typically, a 3-story building on reasonable land in this part of Florida, you're going to do on shallow foundations, and you're not paying a premium for it. Next one. Okay, what we did here is we went back to what we did for you in 2000, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. So I've taken a couple of drawings here just to remind everybody where we were and what we did and why we did it. At that time, the jail was still attached to the back of the courthouse. The courts function, the clerk's function were all in the front part of the building, not in the jail. That enabled us at that time to propose knocking the jail down, sealing off the back of the courthouse, and then building a new courthouse on that property, then allowing you then the parking spaces to the right on that drawing, and then all the way down fundamentally to the railroad tracks where you've got then retention, detention at that end of the site. The interesting thing on this site, if we go to the next one, is that there's a substantial slope across that site from the main street, down to that property behind. And so here we had to balance the height of the new building against floodplain and also how to access the building and how, if we needed to, any connections, pedestrian and otherwise, to the existing building. So here we were showing that we were actually going to park the judges, tuck them in under the building, and do some access under the building, and then build a 3-story courthouse on top of it. And at that time, then, we were proposing, once the new building was built, which would house everything, to renovate that front building, actually knock the 2 wings off, and at that time, we were going to turn it into a law library and a more kind of public building. So that's what we did in 2000. As I said, the jail was there, and we had the ability to knock that off. That wasn't in use, per se. And then we could build the courthouse right up against it. So if we now move forward, what has changed? Nothing. You've got those modular office buildings on the back, which house pretty much the entire clerk's operation and a courtroom, which is used for jury assembly and other things. So those spaces have to stay in operation until you've got a new courthouse, unless you were going to completely relocate them. So that configuration of those modulars is actually slightly different from the old jail, and it throws up some interesting opportunities. So if we go to the next slide, here's what we've suggested at the moment. And we took the plan that you've seen on the other 2 courthouses for now, on the other 2 sites. It's the same building, the same dimensions. And what we propose to do is to build it outside, beyond the trailers and the modulars, on that overflow parking lot, so that the court can continue to function. And then once that building is built, you could take those modulars down, you could create then parking and a public plaza, and we've suggested that we kind of set an entry up off of Willing opposite the memorial there to make it a much more formal space, and then provide parking in front of the courthouse, also then parking behind it, which could be staff parking, jury parking, because you can't get more than about 120 or so cars in front of the courthouse. A couple of things we need to have a look at here to consider. When we're doing the courthouse on the 2 Highway 90 sites, you need to park all the cars on the site for people coming to the courthouse. There's nowhere else to park. We would suggest here that we can't get 500 cars plus on this property, probably 350, 400, but it's a downtown environment. It's very normal that people would park elsewhere and walk to the courts. You currently do that. You certainly don't have 300 or 400 parking spaces at the courthouse today. So there's what they call a shared use discussion about traffic and parking at the courthouse. So that's kind of interesting. The thing that we would have to do if you wanted to further pursue this so that we could get a good comparison of all 3 schemes is that if you look closely at this drawing, that courthouse plan goes from curb to curb across the site. It's probably 20, 30 feet too wide. We could absolutely plan it to be narrower and just redo that to make it fit properly so it was truly a viable scheme. Does that have much difference in the cost of the building at the end of the day? No, I don't believe so. It's still 150,000 square foot, 3-story courthouse. But the one thing that we do know about this site from the work we did in 2000 is how poor the soils are, because it's up against the river. We had detailed geotechnical evaluations done. Our structural engineer is still involved in the project, and we know that we'd have to go to deep pile foundations to hold up that courthouse in that location. So you would be, $500,000 to $1 million more on this site if we could do shallow foundations on the other sites. So is it viable on this site? In this scenario, yes. It doesn't have the expansion space as pure as we have on the two Highway 90 spaces, i.e. you could expand on each end. But what we're suggesting is you would vacate the historic building. You'd then have the flexibility to decide whether you took the wings off it, left the wings on it, renovate it. Could that be future probation, archive, office space? Could all be looked at. You could make that decision as to how much or little of that you wanted to use. So there's certainly a scheme there that can be compared against the other two for cost and function. Next one, please, Roger. So just to put it in context, but get a sense of the scale, historic courthouse on the left-hand side of the picture, public plaza and parking on a lower area, and then the courthouse at the other end of the site. Next one. Just to let you know, as I've said, we're working through in detail. We've had some meetings, not within the last couple of weeks, but meetings with the clerk's office, the state attorney, public defender, the courts, on developing a lot more detailed plans, as you can see here, down to furniture layouts in some of the open areas to be able to test these things. Not finished, but well on their way. And also, they're finished as a set of plans, but not designed as a building. What does it look like? Remember, we had that conversation about what kind of style of a building, what kind of materials. We want to wait until we've zeroed in to do that. But detailed plans here, so level 1 with the clerk's office, the high-volume courtroom, and the public defender and the sheriffs. Next one, please. Second floor has jury assembly, has some court admin functions, and then 4 courtrooms and judges and deliberation room. And then top floor is the state attorney, guardian program, and more courtrooms and judges. So we're quite a way along in those plans, and I think we've got pretty good support from the users that we're going in the right direction and we're meeting their needs. So with that, what we're contracted for you to do is to evaluate currently those 2 sites. If you want to do a third look, so we've got an apples-to-apples comparison, we can do that. Most of the work is looking at the different costs of site work. We will price the building for you, and then in effect it'll get applied to all 3 sites. We'll highlight any of the differences between the 3 sites. We've got to finish those plans and get everybody's blessings on the plans. We have to go through that process of designing what does it look like and get, it's very difficult designing a courthouse. It's tough to design any public building. You don't want to have it truly designed by a committee, but I think we could make some good recommendations to you to do a very important civic building that's very cost-effective and durable. Then that gives you a package to decide how you'd like to move forward with it. So that's in brief is the presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions. There's more detailed work to be done on all of them to get it there.
Commissioner Salter.
Duncan, thank you for the presentation. As always, great job. Do we know exactly how big a site is the downtown site? 1 acre, 1.5, 2 acres?
Oh, no, it's many more than that, just because the building itself is over an acre. The footprint of the building is 50,000 square feet, so that's about 1.25 acres in itself. I'm sorry, I'd have to go put a tape around it, and I don't know if Steve knows off the top of his head.
I think a lot of people think we own the property all the way back through that back paved road, and we don't.
Right.
It stops just where the old farmer's market used to be.
Right, and we've assumed in these plans that you take it actually all the way to the railroad tracks. And I know that you don't necessarily own all of that property, but in order to get a plan that is comparable, you'd need all that land, and you'd still be short on parking, we'd have to make that argument that there is enough adjacent parking to support a courts building.
Mr. Chairman, also, you said that if we tried to put the courthouse back there, we'd have to go curb to curb.
Well, no, our drawing showed it curb to curb because I wanted to make a comparison of the building we've been planning with and how it fits on the site. We would have to shorten it up so you could get sidewalks past it. You'd have to also shorten it up. You need a certain amount of setback from the curb. Unfortunately, when we did it the first time, 9/11 hadn't even happened. You know, it's typical to get the face of a courthouse at least 25 feet back from the curb, just in case somebody parks something there. We can plan it to do that. It would just change the profile of the building a little bit. And that would require, you know, at least a couple more weeks from us to work through it, get the plans to the same level, get through it, share those plans with all the users. So there is a work effort in making it fit.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Appreciate all this. This is a lot of good information, but I'm concerned with a couple of things that I've seen in some of your drawings.
Yep.
I want to make sure you've been in touch with Mr. Byram on this, because you have here entry to courthouse on the Byram property,
Yep.
East 90, but then you have future retention, future development of parking, future development, and it's always been my understanding that he was going to retain those front positions. So I don't want to mislead the public or any of us that this would be a portion of the property that the Santa Rosa County would have much say-so on if that's the case.
Okay, and I think that's a very good point, Commissioner, and I think, yes, you can draw your property line on that property where you choose. I think from our point of view, we'd like some input from you and the Byram owners to understand how much property in front of the courthouse, how much property behind, because there's obviously a market influence on the size of parcels, so that would be good input to get
I'll
to
make
us.
sure we get that to you.
Yep.
And then the other, we've also discussed on the West 90 property, or probably P Ridge would be better than Pace, I would
Okay,
say, as
sorry.
far as a comment on that.
Not non-local.
But I'm seeing the same thing here, where we see future retention. Certainly, we would have future development and parking, but I thought we discussed already of basically one big retention pond for this piece of property. And there again, I don't want to indicate something that,
No.
that we're looking at on a picture and then we're changing it.
Yeah, the one thing, and you brought this up last time, and in conversations with Steve and the engineering group, obviously the best solution is a single retention pond to take care of the whole property. Okay. The next step for us is to look at these sites in a little bit more detail. There's a little bit of a hump on the site, and so we'd need to, what we don't want to do is try and make water go uphill and then downhill across the site. Hatchmark could look at that to make sure the most effective would be to put it all in one place, but there may be enough of a hump that it wouldn't actually work that way, and we'd need a little bit at the front.
Okay. And have you had any discussion yet with the group that was set up by the mayor to do some studies on downtown, or have you been in discussion with them?
I have not, Commissioner.
All right. Okay.
We did this one based on, a conversation I had with Mr. Walker about, going back and looking at what we did before to get you some information to at least highlight we can't do exactly what we did last time.
Sure.
Because things have changed.
Okay.
Any further direction would be obviously very helpful.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Duncan. Great presentation. We have two distinct eras here in Santa Rosa County, pre-Ivan and post-Ivan. The 2000, 2001 feasibility study and all the work you did back then obviously was before the hurricane. Have any of the flood maps changed or anything else that would impact the feasibility of that site?
The question was, did any of the flood maps change after Ivan?
Referring to the downtown site here. Flood maps were updated after Hurricane Ivan. Currently, what the flood maps show on the downtown site, there's actually been a detailed study done. The site does lie within a 100-year flood zone. The detailed study extends through the area where that site is. You've got a determined or modeled elevation for base flood elevation. The southerly end of the site, elevation 9. You get up towards the modular buildings at the rear, it's elevation 10. Towards 90, it shows elevation 13.
And part of the exercise, if you choose to move forward with that site, is us to actually set the courthouse main floor level. It would be up off the ground, but whether it's 5 feet up or 10 feet up, we need to look at. But it would not be down at curb level. You know, as we did before, you'd have courthouse steps, you'd have the plaza to deal with that, but there is some cost of fill going underneath it.
Thank you.
So before you leave, the short answer to that was yes, you have looked at the floodplains and it will fit. We can make it work. Is that a correct summation of what you said?
There may take, like I said, some elevation to bring the courthouse up.
Yes, sir. Would you step closer to the mic so we can be sure we get it on the record?
Right. There may take some work to get the building up to bring the finished floor elevation to the required elevation. The Land Development Code actually requires that you have a foot of freeboard above the base flood elevation. But it should be able to work on the site.
Okay, thank you very much.
What's the base flood elevation? What is that?
Base flood
number?
elevation is where they determine the elevation for the 100-year floodplain on that site. Like I said, they've actually had a detailed study, and it varies. Lower elevation on the north side, higher elevation as you go further north.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, this question wouldn't lead to either one of these gentlemen, but one of the things I think we need in developing this is, of course, the additional cost of the property, because it certainly indicates from Duncan's work here that, you know, there's a large piece of property, actually 2 or 3 parcels that we would have to look into purchasing. And thank you.
Duncan, thank you very much. Very informative. We appreciate your efforts. We're going to take citizen comments now, so we might need you to answer a question or two.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ira Mae Bruce, 7189 Wells Avenue, Navarre, Florida. My comment is that I think that maybe Roger might be the only person here that was working in that courthouse, in the current courthouse. The supervisor of elections, when it rained, was in galoshes. All of their people were in galoshes. We did a study thinking of purchasing the property across the street near the river for this building so that it would all be compact. And the study showed that it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just for that building to stabilize it because of the water. And I would urge you to be very, very careful if you choose this site, because the cost of building it's going to be much higher than it will be in any other site. I don't even know what other sites you're looking at, but I do know what the problems were the 8 years I lived in the building. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sandra, name and address, please, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton, Florida. The flood we just had, what was that determined? A 200-year flood or a 100-year flood?
I've heard 500-year floods. I've heard a lot of things. I have no idea what the definitive answer to that is.
So how does it affect how you're going to build and what you're going to decide to do? Does it have any effect?
Of course it has an effect, but I think what your question is has that been factored into the floodplains? And I don't know what the answer to that is. That will, in the next few years, be plugged in, but it was such a one-off deal, I don't know how they're going to deal with it.
But we are going to look at...
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Do retention ponds work?
Yes, ma'am.
Retention ponds do work.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If they're, properly designed and maintained, they'll do the job.
Did you talk about East Milton this morning?
No, ma'am, not.
Why did we not talk about East Milton? Is that not a consideration?
Yes, ma'am. There's 3 things on the agenda, but right now we were getting this particular update on this piece of property.
Okay.
We-
So you're going to address East Milton later?
Yes, ma'am, and at some point, we need to
Mr. Chairman, we already did. We talked about all the property.
He spoke to the Byram property, which is the East Milton site that the board has selected.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
The Byram property that Mr. Duncan outlined in the presentation is the East Milton site that the board had selected.
Okay, thank you. I've heard some information about green concrete. Apparently what it is some kind of material that allows the water to seep through it rather than going off to somewhere to be pooled. Are we considering doing some kind of green concrete for like parking lots and so forth? Do you know anything about green
No,
concrete?
ma'am, I don't, but no, that's why we hire these professionals. It's not our job to know those details. That's why we hire these folks that are supposed to know those kind of details and bring them to our attention.
So
Yes.
have they considered green
He's
concrete?
standing right beside you.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Yeah, yes, it's actually called pervious concrete, and it has been used in certain locations in parking, and it's something we could certainly look at on all of the sites to cut down the impermeable area and therefore reduce the amount of retention that you need.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My understanding of what they said about the 2 or 3 story buildings was 2 stories may be more practical because it's a lot more expensive with the underneath area on the 3rd floor. So are we going with 2 stories because of that, or?
We haven't made that decision, and we were closing in on that decision, but he said that I think the underpinnings, the deeper piles that you said would be about $1 million. But if we used this site, assuming that this was going to be site we were going to use, it would add $1 million to the.
In all of these schemes, just to make it clear, we're proposing a 3-story building.
Yeah.
The 2 stories is really not an option because of the amount of site it covers. Obviously, in 3 stories, we cover less land. 3 stories also works most effectively for the separation of the various users in the building, state attorney, public defender, the clerk, the courts. So 3 stories becomes a very efficient, cost-effective building. So it would be 3 stories on all of these sites. The question is it elevated off the site 3, 4, 5 feet to take care of flood issues? And then what kind of foundation system does it have underneath it? And those are the things that.
And those are the nuts and bolts that our professionals will work out when we settle on a site.
I've been driving around Milton paying attention to the buildings, and I like the look of the firehouse. Is that a consideration for design of the courthouse, something similar to that? Something
Again-
that's not showy but practical?
Yes, ma'am. When we get to the aesthetics of the building, again, he's going to make those presentations. Right now, we're not talking about what the outside of the building is going to look like.
Okay. Those are my questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming down and asking them. Yes, sir, Sheriff.
Just to comment on flooding and raining and high water. I've been going that road for 14 years now, and rain is not an issue. It is an issue, but don't forget storm surge. The morning after Hurricane Ivan, I was probably one of the first responders back out on the road. Everybody knows what the gazebo is like just north of Highway 90 there. You could barely see the top little part of it. The water was almost up to there. The water was not very many feet under the Highway 90 bridge. I could still get through Milton on Highway 90, but everything south of there, the Memorial Plaza, was underwater, up 3 or 4 feet. So it's not necessarily a 100-year rain or a 200-year rain. It's storm surge after hurricanes. there's nowhere for the water to go. It pushes water up that river basin and it backs up. And that's what I saw. Also, whatever we do, as far as what we do in bringing inmates into that courthouse, we need a sally port where we can drive them in, offload them on the level, and then we don't even really need to have to use elevators to get a large majority of them up to the level that we will have to process them all at one time. Now, if we have a ground level sally port with holding, which is the way this one Mr. Duncan talked about, so it's designed, and then we can take them up to the courtrooms, but it needs to be on the first floor. So if we have to build a blowout wall or come up 10 or 12 feet off the level ground, we would need ramps to go up to that level so we could drive up there as opposed to putting them. You certainly don't want to have to go upstairs like they used to have to do in the old jail because of that reason, because of getting above the water level. So that's some things that I saw firsthand, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir, good morning.
Good morning, commissioners, staff. Just a letter to read to you from Main Street, Milton, Vernon Compton, 5149 Santa Rosa Street. Dear Santa Rosa, and this is on behalf of our president, Sammy Carroll. Dear Santa Rosa Board of County Commissioners, the Main Street Milton Board of Directors appreciates the input you have taken from Santa Rosa County citizens pertaining to the location of the new judicial facility, from posting all of the information on your website to hosting meetings in different parts of Santa Rosa County in the evening. You have listened and have been transparent throughout the process. We have also listened and learned from the meetings and from discussions with citizens, and as a result, would like to share with you our modified statement of support. For over 100 years, the Santa Rosa County Courthouse has been the largest and most visible public building in downtown Milton. It's an important part of our heritage and has served the county well. In 2001, Santa Rosa County had a new facility designed for the current location. It was designed to meet the needs of the county while still allowing use of the historic courthouse built in 1927. Many businesses that support the legal system in Santa Rosa County have invested in the downtown and have done so for some time. We believe this affords a wonderful opportunity for Santa Rosa County. Initial discussions pertaining to the location of the new judicial facility did not include a downtown Milton location. Main Street Milton offered a proposal to initiate public discussion on the adaptive reuse of the historic courthouse if the new facility was to be built elsewhere. If this occurs, Main Street Milton will continue to support the adaptive reuse of this historic building. However, we have supported the downtown location in the past due to the important role it has played for decades. We would ask for your consideration for placing the downtown Milton location as one of the sites on the 2014 ballot. Debate and discussion is healthy for a community, and you have encouraged such to occur. Information will be shared with all of the sites you ultimately select for the ballot, and of course, the citizens will make the decision with their vote. We would very much appreciate placement of the downtown Milton location as one of the available options. Sincerely, Sammy Carroll, President of Main Street Milton. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernon. If you'd leave a copy of that, please, with a recorder, that'll make it part of the public record. We appreciate it very much. Anybody else have a comment before we move to the next item? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection.
I think what Mr. Broad had requested was we need some direction on, and specifically on I believe he added on that last slide, Roger, if you could put that back up, maybe that'll focus us a little bit.
Yes, fundamentally, from our point of view, working for you, how much further, how much more work do you want us to do, having a look at the downtown Milton site?
I would like to see this fleshed out because, and at some point, hopefully we could maybe carve some of these sites off the list and narrow the list down. I think this is getting a little cumbersome for the ballot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would like enough detail to be able to make an informed decision about the sites.
Okay, well,
And then
I'll talk to.
Anybody on the board have a comment they'd like to make contrary to that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what we're gonna try to move to Thursday. I know Duncan needs more direction on the number of sites we're gonna have, so on Thursday, are we going to give him direction on the number of sites? Or what's gonna be the action on Thursday?
If you don't mind me, from our point of view, we can sit on the other 2 sites at the moment and wait. We can do a little bit more study work on the downtown site to bring it to a comparable level of detail. At the moment, there's a lot of what-ifs on the downtown site that wouldn't make it a fair heads-up comparison.
I think that's what I would like to see happen,
And put the other stuff on hold until we bring them all to the same level.
Get 'em at one.
And then you can say, we'd like
Right.
to look at 2, 3, 1.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Commissioner Lyncher, did you want to make a comment, sir?
No, I agree. I think
Yeah,
Duncan's approach
okay.
there is a good one.
All right.
That way we're looking
Absolutely.
at apples to apples.
Right.
And we have as much information as we can before we make, the decisions that are going to be extremely important for the next 75 years of the county.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you would, if you'd get them on a level playing field, and we will take that back up again Thursday.
I don't know that we
Yes,
can
sir.
have that done by, can we have that done by Thursday?
Well, we can't, we can get started on the work.
Okay, well, we may not need to move this to Thursday then.
I guess
If I could, I think our
Yes,
action
sir.
for Thursday would be to approve the expenditure required
Right.
to allow Duncan
That's
to
what I
move
was trying
forward.
to get to.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
And I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Okay, sir.
And it seems like to me the 2 things that that they're gonna need is the additional property, which that's really in the overall scheme of things not gonna be very much money. But operationally we've got, is it a 12 or 15,000 square foot modular that somehow we're gonna have to figure out how to remove that, where to relocate those people that populate that square footage, and secondly, where you're gonna hold court in the areas that are there.
No, because actually what our proposal currently is to leave that in place while you build the new building.
And then that would obviate
That's the reason for
need.
pushing it so far away from the
So far
historic
south?
buildings. Yes, so that
Okay,
you
well,
can
that
leave
makes it
all of
at
that in
least work.
place. The sheriff, actually answering the sheriff's concern is probably some of the most work
Okay.
we have to do to solve the issue of ramping and access.
Right.
Once we set that flood elevation at a place we can all live with.
We have a motion without objection. Commissioner Cole, do you have something to add to this
I
conversation?
do. I just want to make sure, Duncan, in what you're proposing, if we move forward, to allow you to look at this more, will you include the balance of the needed parking? I know in your statement you said that we'd still be perhaps 100 cars shy, even with the additional space. So can you get us a good hard number on how much parking we'd be short? And of
Yes.
course, the additional.
Yeah, that's precisely it, Commissioner.
Additional costs, both in purchasing of land, but also elevation, things like the sheriff said and everything. So,
That's what we need to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. And I don't know if it's intended or with just common use has made it so, but the parking over there by the fountain is basically the courthouse parking, that and
Yes.
the on-street stuff, so I assume you already have that in the mix.
Yeah, I mean,
Just-
the nature of any downtown building is everybody shares parking space.
Okay.
There's some that's dedicated, and then it's first come, first
Thank you.
served.
I have a motion without objection to move this Thursday to approve the funding for this further study. Hearing none.
Sorry?
Yeah,
I'll
Hearing none,
send
it
you a
passes.
proposal. Thank you.
All right, item number 2 is discussion of proposed amended and restated lease for the Holly Corp and American Fidelity Investments on Navarre Beach, and we have the owners present. Ms. Jones?
I was going to mention that this morning when I came in, on my desk was an amended lease from Holly Corp. This is different from what's in your backup material, different from what you saw 2 weeks ago. I distributed a copy to all of you. One material thing that jumped out at me is placed back into that lease that's now being requested by Holly Corp is the same payment terms as were in their existing lease, the same 3%, 2%, et cetera. That's on page 2 of what I handed you this morning. Now, I've not had an opportunity to go through the remainder of the document and see if anything else changed. I think they did change, rather than having 14 months to begin construction, I think they changed it to 15. Nothing else jumped out at me, but I will go through that, and if there's anything else, I'll call your attention to it.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Ms. Hess taking the time the other day and meeting with us, clarified a lot of things for me in cost of construction, and we discussed the lessening of the number of rooms required, and I'm good with that. I like the fact that we've gone back to this particular lease. I think one thing that we'll find as we go through this new lease, and Ms. Hess can clarify me if I'm wrong, is the idea of rather than paying the lease a month-to-month lease, it would be basically at the end of the year where part of that could be offset by taxes. And we discussed that the other day. And
We're going to get to that here.
Okay. I didn't know if we were going to do it.
Okay. All right, Ms. Hess and Joe, if you guys will come up and tell us about what you've got planned for us. You need to turn the light on, Marilyn. There's a button there. If you push it, you'll get a red light. With the right-hand button for you. There you go.
Good morning. I'm Marilyn Hess, 4060 Barrancas Avenue, Pensacola, Florida. The tax, what we realized in moving back to putting the original fees in there and the property taxes is it's going to be, don't you do it. It's I'm terrible.
Pull the mic a little lower. You speak so softly, it's a little difficult to hear you. Thank you.
We recognized that it was going to be a big issue to try and pay lease fees during the year and then try and get the county to either refund or figure out the offset on property taxes. So we tried to do the language to be that if we pay the lease fees, then the property taxes, then the lease fees for the next year just keep deducting off of those. So I think, we may be a little bit injured in the first year, possibly depending on when the hotel can open and when the taxes are due. I couldn't quite get my mind around it, but other than that, it would be an offset for the next year's lease fees. And the way that we have looked at these, we're not thinking that, we're thinking that the property taxes will always exceed the lease fees that were in the original lease. So, did that make any sense?
It does. Thank you, Commissioner Cole.
And Mr. Chairman, this isn't something new, particularly just for Holly Corp or anybody out there, because it's I found I was reading through this, and in 2001 the board developed a policy regarding credits given to the lower beach holders. So that's pretty much what we found will be applicable to this.
Yes, that's fine. Anybody have any questions of Ms. Hess? Thank you very much. I think we've got a couple.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner.
None right now. Again, I just received this morning, so I may have some questions later, but just wanted to reserve my right to ask questions.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that she'll have somebody here.
And please feel free to call me or call us on anything that you have, and the same with Angie.
Yes, ma'am, we certainly will. This is something we're all excited about. Yes, ma'am.
I promise I won't come for every issue. My name is Ira Mae Bruce, 7189 Wells Avenue, Navarre, Florida. I'm thrilled that the Holiday Inn is moving forward. I would like to know if all of the leases on Navarre Beach is this going to be the model for adapting all of us? I'm paying $10,000 or $12,000 a year in taxes, which is much less than she is, but I'm also paying 4% on lease fees of the rental properties, and I manage 200 units on the beach that have that same policy. And I'm hoping that the board is moving forward on a policy that is going to be not double indemnity for all, and place the people in Navarre Beach in the same status as all the other properties in Santa Rosa County.
I think you're going to find this is a business-friendly board. Our mission here is to grow tourism and to grow business and not have punitive measures. And I, for one, think those are punitive, and I've shared my thoughts before. I'd certainly support that.
When would we see that process begin?
Just as soon as, the reason we haven't been able to start it before, Ms. Hess was not part of the large lawsuit. She was an independent. So when we get this thing settled and out of the way, it'd be Billman.
Just as a thought, I paid all my taxes.
I understand.
I don't owe you anything.
Yeah, I understand, and it's fair. It's be fair to everybody. And
Okay, so we'll probably see sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Something that we can present to all the leaseholders on the beach, that when they have paid their taxes, that their
for
leases will be deducted.
those folks that are current, yes, ma'am, we're going to have to.
Yeah, I understand
it's
there's a
gonna
lot
make
of
it-
people
right.
that are crying because they're not current now.
Yeah, and those are complicated issues, and we'll work through them. But for the ones that we can help, that are current, and that we can help, we certainly will strive to get that done. I think that's probably the will of this entire board. I certainly haven't polled them, but that's my personal opinion, and I think you'll find that to be pretty universal.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, in RMA, I just referred to the, I think it applies to everybody. It's the Navarre Beach lease payment policy that took effect November 1st, 2001, where it gives certain improvements to leaseholders on Navarre Beach would be subject to ad valorem taxes, and a credit shall be given on lease payments due. So that's currently applying to everybody. So.
May we have a copy of that?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
And so that we can present it to all the leaseholders, because I think I have some money coming back from the county.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll make sure you get a copy of it anyway.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cantu.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. There's something I think I don't understand about what's going on, and maybe it's just my misunderstanding or what. I equate the lease payment that the corporations or the companies are making are similar to buying the property, their share in buying the property, and then the tax they pay just like the tax that I would pay on my property. Why are we renegotiating essentially the sale price of the property that those people are using to make money? I don't understand that. Can you explain it?
There's a system that was set up in the 70s somewhere, back in the dim, dark past, that the lease fee was to cover all the fees, that there would be no taxes, and then came along and the taxes were put in place, and then the lawsuits took place. Both sides, the county's side and the lease payer side, the courts decided that it was legal to tax them. And in the light of that decision, my personal opinion became that lease fees and taxes were punitive and hurting business. And so that's what we're talking about now, is correcting the punitive part of that. And so they're treated like any other landowner in Santa Rosa County and not singled out for any special taxation. That'd be just like anybody else in Santa Rosa County that owns a piece of land. They pay taxes on that land. Some people have to pay a percentage of their gross of the businesses that they personally, put their own sweat equity into and built. And that, again, is something that goes back into the 70s. And what is in place here was put in place in 2001 and is relief from that, because it's patently unfair.
But the person who buys a piece of property and builds a home on it has to pay for that land in the first place, and then has to pay taxes on it in addition to that cost of the property. So how is it different from these companies that are essentially buying, because the lease is for all practical purposes forever, 99-year lease? When the county commissioners talk about wanting to get money or income for the county, and yet now you're renegotiating something to give back money to businesses, that's the part I don't get.
Well, and I understand that.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
All I
No,
wanted
you're
to say
fine.
was, we purchased our property before we paid lease payments. We paid the fair market value for the hotel. It was appraised, and that's what we had to do. So if I go and I purchase the Holiday Inn, I might pay, well, the new hotel is $30 million, but we purchased the land, we purchased the old Holiday Inn, and then our lease payment was based on income. So because we didn't pay property tax. The only change now is we're paying 400 and some thousand in property tax, so to keep doing the lease payment is basically double taxation. We paid the same fair market value that you did for your house for our hotel and our land. We didn't just start paying a lease for it.
to whom did you pay the money?
To whoever owned it before. Just like if you sold your house, they wouldn't just buy your lease and your lease payment, they would have to pay you the fair market value for your house. Same
Okay.
difference.
And if you would get with the attorney, I'm sure that she'll be happy to help you work through this after the meeting, because it
Thank
is
you.
very complicated. It is a very complicated issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Yes,
time.
ma'am, thank you. Is there anything else from the board or from the public on this? I'd like to move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3 is discussion of issuance of Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, a COPCN, for the operation of emergency air ambulance transportation services to MedTrans Corporation, doing business as Lifelight, and this is another one of those deals where the corporate names change and humans remain the same. It's in the backup. Any questions from the commissioners?
Actually, this is a change. I believe this is for an air ambulance service. Lifeguard currently has a COPCN, or the only exclusive COPCN for the ground ambulance or emergency.
So this would just add air service to what we need, and it's badly
correct.
needed service. I'd like to move this to Thursday without
I
objection.
think there's some people to speak to
Got a
that.
comment, sir?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, go ahead while he's making his way there.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'm real happy to see that our citizens of Santa Rosa County are going to get this an additional service. Lifeguard has done nothing over the years but continue to improve the service in Santa Rosa County. They've always gone over and above their contract, and this is just exciting to see this coming to our county for our citizens and a more rapid response time. So it's just a very good thing, I think, for our citizens, enjoying getting this off the ground. So,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Literally off the ground.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron Brown. I live 128 10th Avenue in Shalimar, Florida, and I'm here representing Air Methods Corporation, who currently holds the air ambulance COPCN for Santa Rosa County. Commission, if you recall, you issued us that without objection several months ago. Air Methods recently acquired the Baptist Lifelight program. Part of that acquisition was us having the COPCN in Air Methods' name at the time. For several years, Lifelight has been your primary helicopter air ambulance provider for Santa Rosa County, with the backup of, in the past, Gulf Flight out of Niceville, but most recently Earhart out of Crestview. What I provided you with on the sheet that we passed out was just some historical data. Through the past years, Santa Rosa County has never had a helicopter based in Santa Rosa County. You've always relied on Baptist Lifelight as your air ambulance provider. They have always been there for you to help out. They've worked with you and really done some great things for you and the citizens in this county. I went back to 2012 just to keep it realistic for the past couple of years. And as you'll see on that sheet, there actually has been a decline in requests for the air ambulance use, and there's been a decline in the actual flights that have come out of the county. I realize with logistics and different things that come up that the reality of that is there's a lot of reasons why that we probably don't have enough time to explain today, helicopter use and the gradual decline. But we base our information on actual data, and this is the actual data of the past 2.5 years up till June 1st. Air Methods, in partner with Baptist Health System and Sacred Heart Healthcare, have 2 helicopters available to Lifeguard to use anytime they need, weather permitting, maintenance permitting, and our availability. We also have several other backup helicopters that surround Santa Rosa County, one north of here that's in Greenville up in Alabama. So if you had a mass casualty type situation, realistically, within 45 minutes, you could have 4 helicopters sitting in this county, anywhere in this county. We have worked hard to work with Lifeguard. We've worked with them, attended their conferences. We do outreach education for their staff at different locations through different venues. We've done PRs with them actually in Santa Rosa County here for different events that they've had with you guys. We've really worked hard as Baptist Lifeline and Air Methods to work with them and make those helicopters available. In the past, the commission and many people here have felt that there wasn't a necessary reason to have a helicopter based here because of the availability of the 2 helicopters that surround the county. Air Methods just asks that since we were issued the COPCN without objection several months ago, you allow us to keep operating for you as your air ambulance provider, working with a Lifeguard under the model they propose. So that's all that I ask, and I'm open to any questions from Air Methods.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Name and address, please, for the record.
Good morning. Jason Kimbrell, 2701 Seagrass Road. I'm a senior leader with Lifeguard Ambulance Service. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. Just to provide some clarity, the model that we're proposing, there's not many across the southeast United States. This is a fully integrated medical helicopter into what is now one of the most progressive and innovative 911 services in the state of Florida, if not in the southeast part of the United States. An integrated EMS helicopter is very much different than your Life Flight or your Earhart models. By having an aircraft in your backup information, you will see that it's branded with the EMS, the Lifeguard EMS brand. Essentially, it's the Lifeguard EMS staff with one medical director, one continuity of clinical protocols. You train together, you find ways to decrease your scene times. And Mr. Brown is correct that there's not a high utilization in Santa Rosa County today. There's a couple reasons for that. One is if you have quick response times, which we do, we have some of the best response times in the area. If your ambulances have quick response times to the scene and your medical director mandates quick turnaround times, mathematically it's very difficult to justify the utilization of a helicopter coming from Escambia County or even from Crestview, Florida, that would make sense. It's like the algebra equation, an airplane's leaving Atlanta, traveling at this speed, this distance. For every minute that you remain on scene, that costs lives. Patients need to be in the trauma center, and to sit on scene and wait for a helicopter to come from an adjacent county, it just doesn't make sense. And we're in the business of doing the right thing for the patient all the time. And we feel like this is an exciting opportunity, not only for our staff, but for the community as a whole, evident with our team members here. To be one of 3 integrated EMS systems from Miami-Dade to Austin, Texas is pretty exciting, very exciting, matter of fact. I feel like we've got the strongest EMS system as a whole, from the 911 dispatch to the fire department support, to make this world-class. We do propose bringing in 18 new jobs, and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the grow business as a strategy and a platform that the Commission works very hard on. And as you know, when we started in 2007, we had about 67 employees. Now we're the 8th largest employer in Santa Rosa County. Our focus is Santa Rosa County. Both what used to be Baptist Lifeline and Earhart are both great programs, but a lot of their service is outside of both of those counties. Lifeline, for example, does a lot of business over in South Baldwin County or in Escambia County, Alabama. We're proposing a primary service area of Santa Rosa County. This is something that Santa Rosa County citizens can call their own. The boys and girls can come see the helicopter that services their community. We can do career fairs within our community. Post-hurricanes, this aircraft can be used for damage assessments. It's not fair to the citizens of this community to not have their helicopter to provide services to the citizens here when both Escambia and Okaloosa both have their own helicopter. It's just not fair. It's not about the business, it's about the community. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman. Jason? Jason. Mr. Chairman, please.
Yes, sir.
2 questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Will this cost our citizens anything?
No, sir.
Will this improve the service for our citizens?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, anything else from anybody else? I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 4 is discussion of a request for placement of 8 benches adjacent to recently installed sidewalk pedestrian path around Spencer Field. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is the request, and Mr. Warwick had contacted my office some time ago about the installation of these 8 benches, and you see his proposal about every half mile. And just I put a map of Spencer Field in the board's packet. Is the Navy owns the entire parcel. They own all the land. In fact, technically, I believe they own all, including the roadways. We just have easements for the roadways, if I remember. So the Navy is the owner. They were amenable to amending the easement to include the sidewalks. You see the information in your packet from Randy Roy outlining their concern with the installation of benches on that particular property, and he's here to speak to that. I don't think there would be any, obviously there wouldn't be any concern in naming the trail, the Commissioner Jim Williamson Trail. I think there was the Navy concern, and again, Randy can speak to that, I believe, is the installation of the benches. And Mr. Warwick may be here, and I didn't see him, but he may be here to speak to that.
Morning, Randy.
Good morning, Randy Roy, Whitingfield. I sent some responses. I know that Mr. Work and a few of the citizens were asking about putting some park benches around the sidewalk. And the initial request that came actually was to put a sidewalk around Spencer. The very, very first request actually was to put a sidewalk across the street on some of the basically not on our property, but on other people's property. But we were able to work with the Navy and actually work out an easement to allow the sidewalks to be erected around Whitingfield proper to basically help with the betterment for travel for the folks in and around the area. Because, as you know, Spencer Field is completely surrounded by subdivisions. You got Benny Russell Park in the corner. Got little flood issues over there that happen on occasion with some heavy, heavy rain. But the sidewalks was actually quite a conversation that happened internal to the Navy whether or not sidewalks would be permitted around the airfield because of the height. This is one of our highest used airfields. About 300,000 ops happen at Spencer Field. If you wanted to look at some of the other airfields, they're about 100,000. So it's a very busy airfield. So we were like, ooh, sidewalks. We looked at it and looked at whether or not it was permitted use or not. And it actually is a sidewalk or fenced area. Just didn't want a lot of people in and around the airfield gathering large parties or anything because of the flying activity that happens at the airfield. And after some discussion with some of the folks on the base and some of the real estate folks that we deal with and some of the recommended land use tables that we use, the going-in chip was the easement was intended for the sidewalks, and if you start having park benches and other type of facilities start going in around the airfield, we sort of being counterproductive. What we're trying to do is keep the airfield safe and keep the public safe. But there was another part to that. I don't know if I didn't hear if you guys mentioned it, but possibly rededicating it. But I think you might bring that up. I fully support that as well.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the board? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Randy, with I think you know this board, we've all been very protective of Whitingfield and everything, and I could certainly see if we was coming at you saying, let's build gazebos or something like that around here, but and perhaps maybe not every half mile, maybe expand them a little bit, but everybody that's out there, people walking it, running it, whatever, I could see a benefit in this much parameter to maybe have a bench if we can maybe take another look at it. Again, maybe not every half mile, but maybe something lessening that.
Yeah.
And maybe even put a caveat in it that's it. We're not going to ask to put a roof over the bench and stuff like that. But,
and that's the going in when we were talking internally. It's a park bench every half mile. then it becomes an enclosed park bench because it's really hot in Florida. Then you can see where it can, and you've seen it in any other place where you start. I'm not saying that sprawling would happen, but that was the initial response based on what we were receiving. Certainly can take your request and say, hey, it is a 4-mile walk, basically 1 mile each side. You know, do you put it in the middle outside of these action potential zones? And very limited. The sidewalks some of the spots are a little thin, and then some of them go around. And they did a great job with the county and with the contractor to go around and save some of those nice big trees and actually made it pretty cool little walkways. I think the activity around the airfield is a little bit more robust than some of the folks initially thought when they were going to put the sidewalks in as well. So it's certainly something we can bring back. When we had a discussion, it was coming up at the board, and I know that there was some queries on it. And the very, very first request, actually, from Mr. Warwick, through, I think, Chris Phillips, was whether or not this could be something. And we were trying to never have a conglomerate, a bunch of folks around the airfield, so it was kind of fuzzy on what the request was going to be. And then certainly can look at it, can ask again. And I think that the caveat would be, based on the easement that we have, we'd have to modify that to allow a park bench. I think the easement allows for the erection of the sidewalk, and I think we already have an existing one with the county for drainage as well around Spencer Field.
Maybe take another run at it.
Yeah, if you would.
Sure, I can
Please
certainly do
ask them
that.
about the 1 bench a mile, but we would love to dedicate a plaque in memory of Commissioner Williamson.
Absolutely. We just want to know where you wanted to put it, that's all.
Yeah, we'll work those details out with you, and we'll move this to Thursday, and perhaps if you don't have an input, then we'll go ahead and take what we can get and maybe revisit the benches later, if that's not something that we can settle Thursday.
And if I can't get an answer by Wednesday to Hunter or something, maybe it's something you just table it while we get, you don't have to work with the guys and girls out of Jacksonville.
We'll move forward with what we can move forward and revisit the benches when we can.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir.
Got anything else?
No, sir, thank you. You may have a question coming here, Carl.
No question.
Okay.
Just comment.
Okay.
Just an observation. I've used the sidewalks for exercise. I can't imagine why I need a bench there. I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but I go there to walk, and there are places I can go to sit that are air conditioned, and heated. And then we've got to maintain them, and maybe even at some point hire law enforcement if the crowds start congregating to do that. So I think we need to look down the road. I'd like to see every dollar that we're talking about with benches and gazebos and everything else. I'd like to see every dollar go towards the courthouse so that we won't have to add that dollar to the tax burden of the citizens. I'm not against ballparks and things that are used, but I think we need to really look at, is it really needed, and will it really do a thing? And can we do it later after we build a courthouse? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to clarify, Carl, these were not going to be placed at any expense to the county. This was a citizen initiative. No cost to the county, the benches that were proposed.
Not even maintenance?
Maintenance would be, but the construction of the benches and everything.
Yeah, the maintenance.
Anything you build, you're going to have to paint, or you're going to have to rebuild it, or at some point down the road. That's coming from a fellow that's on rental property. So I would say, and that's nice if somebody's going to donate it. I agree with what he said. There's a limited amount of room between the sidewalk and the road. I'm just not sure that's the best place for a bench. I think the thoughts sounds good. Sometimes we do warm and fuzzy things that sound good, but just think if it's really needed, and can we use that money that will, whatever it is, maintenance or whatever, to do the things we really need to do, which is we should have been prioritizing the courthouse for the last 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. With a modification, it will take the walkways and the plaque and work on the benches. Hearing none, it's moved to Thursday. Item number 5 is discussion of proposals received for processing and transporting recyclable material.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, in your packet is a memo from me and a summary of the proposals that we had received. The board had authorized us going out for proposals after the West Florida Recycling bankrupted and went out of service. As you know, we discontinued use and closed the use of the drop-off sites. To this point, we've been still collecting. The recyclable material has been collected at the curbside, primarily in the 2 franchise areas in the south part of the county. But quite frankly, they've been placed in the landfill. And we went out for proposal for the processing and the transporting of those recyclables. We actually had interest from 3 firms. We had the ECUA, the Emerald Coast Utility Authority, Waste Management, and Waste Pro. Waste Pro ultimately submitted a letter that they did not wish to bid. Waste Management submitted a bid or an alternate proposals that were extremely pricey, as you will see from the pricing structure. They were essentially going to charge us per pull, if you will. And then the ECUA option was to do 2 things. They could haul the materials, use our, much less like the West Florida did, they would use our central landfill as their transfer station and send the material, process the material. Ultimately, they're taking it to Montgomery, and there would be no cost for that. In the event that we asked them to open the sites back up, they had made a proposal to do that at $200,000 a year. We're in the process of soliciting RFPs for your north end transportation, solid waste collection, which we think is going to obviate the need for the recyclable sites, collection sites. I mean, they've become a lot more trouble than it seems like they're worth. We've had the neighbors complain to the board. We've had a number that have asked us to close them. So it seems like that the time now is to deal with our recyclables responsibly, and this seemed like the best way to do it. Our recommendation would be to at least authorize staff to continue to talk to ECUA and try to figure out some kind of way for them to haul our recyclables when they're hauling theirs. I think long term, I mean, I think this will be a short term proposal, whether it's 1 or 2 years. I think ultimately there's going to either have to be some kind of overall regional approach taken, and I think that we'll have to continue to look at even standing up our recycling site again. I mean, that's really going to be your options as we move forward. But I think this at least gets us started towards
Commissioner Lyncher.
Moving forward recycling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good solution to our short-term problem that we have right now, which is the fact that we're without a provider. This gives us the ability to salvage that recyclable material that we're currently having to landfill. It doesn't cost the county anything, and our residents can, again, be assured that what they put in the recycling bin is being recycled and not landfilled. So I support this.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I appreciate Tim Hague and ECUA working with us on this, because they've got a similar problem that we have right at the moment. So I think in the nature of the 2-county area and all the endeavors we've worked with lately, this is a great outcome to this. Even if we looked at the $200,000 one annually, that's still a significant savings over what we had when we ran our own program. So I think we got 2 really good options here. We just need to study them and move forward with one.
Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with moving forward with the ECUA, and just want everyone to understand, once we get into franchise in the north end of the county, a lot of the recycling issues will go away.
They'll just be brought to the central landfill, and it's going to increase our volumes considerably. Again, I certainly don't think this is the best long-term solution. I think there's going to have to be some kind of regional approach and this hasn't been, you know, y'all have just seen the proposed agreement this morning. We've just sent a draft to the ECUA staff based on their proposal, just try to get us started because their board meets the end of the month. Y'all meet the end of the month. So I think it's going to take us a while to kind of make sure that we get the details worked out.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Cole.
Make a motion that Thursday, we move to Thursday, that we strike Waste Management's offer and authorize staff to work with the ECUA.
I'm not going to approve that right now because I've got my 2 cents worth. I was waiting for you gentlemen to have your say. I'm very reluctant to enter into an agreement with ECUA, and much less a 2-year agreement. I know we need a short-term resolution to this problem. I'm not impressed with their record. All I know about them is what I read in the newspaper. And I'm not comfortable with it. And that's the bottom line with me. I'm not comfortable with it at all. If we have to do it as a short term, I would say 1 year absolute maximum, and continue to press. I know there are other, we're not the only people in this situation. The market has collapsed. I know that ECUA is transporting to Montgomery, but my understanding is that that's costing them, that they're incurring heavy losses. They're doing that because they're contractually obligated to do it, not because it's financially feasible. I haven't had time to study this because I just saw it this morning. As far as this particular recycling process agreement, along with its recitals, et cetera. Let's move this to Thursday for further discussion, but I would like very much to shorten the time frame up for my input into that and continue to search for viable options. One of the reasons that West Florida, in addition to other problems they had, was actions on the part of ECUA, which caused it very difficult for them to deal with our products. So we'll move this to Thursday, but I would like very much, my preference would have been that this would come to us for approval to send them this agreement, but because they have this agreement in hand now, we can't unring that bell. I think we need to take a careful look at this and limit the time frame to something that we can live with. I know we need a short-term solution, and this definitely is one, but it's, in my opinion, not the best.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Part of the problem with shortening a term is ECUA, would need to make plans for that. And part of the reason that it works out good for us is because in recycling, volume is what counts, volume of whatever product they're hauling up to Montgomery, and the increase in volume that they would see from Santa Rosa County would offset some of their shortfall, make it more, worth them hauling up there. So those are some of the things. I've worked with Tim Hague. I've been chairman of the Bay Area Resource Council now for about 5 years, and worked with Tim through several things he's been with the ECUA with, and I feel more comfortable, perhaps, after you get a chance to look at it a little more, you will also. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and to your comment about volume, I've seen it time and again as my time as a CPA when I was licensed to practice, which I am no longer licensed. But if you're buying something for $1 and selling it for 95 cents, and I actually had a client doing that, and he told me he was going to make it up in volume, all you do when you accelerate the rate is accelerate your losses, because your spread's inverted. You're not making a profit, you're incurring a loss every time you make a sale. Adding us to their volume is probably very likely not going to help them at all, but I'll withhold my judgment. We'll move this to Thursday for further consideration. Without objection, hearing none, it passes. Item number 6 is discussion of an acquisition of conservation easement on 60.6 acre parcel owned by Paul and Shelley Rupert adjacent to NAS Whiting Field in an ongoing base buffering program funded by the Florida Defense Initiative Grant and U.S. Navy REPI funds. Details are in the book. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 7 is discussion of applications and resumes received from the county attorney position. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is the, I didn't put all the resumes in, I believe we ended up with 33. I did put the position announcement that was included, also an alphabetized list of the 33 applicants that we received. You've gotten a paper copy of each of these applications, and I guess just the next step would be to develop some kind of short list and then time frame for how you want to deal with that. And this seems to happen.
Yes,
doesn't happen too often, so
yeah, and I appreciate you giving us those paper copies. I'm about halfway through them. Commissioner Lynchard, I know we've asked you to kind of head this effort up for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you've had a chance to review the resumes, then I'm sure that, one thing that has stood out is the quality of some of the resumes that we've received. We have a number of highly qualified candidates for the county attorney position. So, our short list may not be that short after Thursday. So I would encourage everyone to review those resumes, and then we'll try to shortlist them on Thursday. Out of the 33, again, it's going to be pretty hard to cull down to just a handful of those, because we have a significant number of the applicants have very significant service to local government. So again, we have a well-qualified pool of applicants. So think about how much you want to weight that. Do we want someone who's been in that position before, who served as a county attorney or city attorney, or are we going to cast a wider net and look at people who have experience but maybe less relevant experience than that? So those are some of the questions that we're each going to have to answer.
Sure.
Come Thursday.
Okay, and 10% of that would only be 3. So maybe if we could, I don't know, what do you think, 15% of the top 15 or top 15% or whatever?
I would have a real hard time shortlisting at 3.
Oh, wouldn't 10% would be, yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah, I'm thinking,
what's workable?
half a dozen or 9
yeah.
would probably be a reasonable target to shoot for.
Okay.
And, if we select 9, I mean, we could, I know time is a factor. We don't want this to drag on forever, but out of the 33, if we shortlist to a dozen and then don't conduct formal interviews with the dozen, but we take time to call them on our own, speak with them, and then maybe do a round 2 cut down to 3 or 4, a number that we could actually get here to interview, because the in-person interviews, if someone lives in South Florida, in the past when counties do this, they bring the person in and for the purposes of the interview. So we don't want to do that with a dozen people, but if it's down to 3 or 4, then that would be reasonable.
I have no objection with that. Anybody have anything different from that? Well, let's proceed like that then, if you would, please, sir, and I'll continue to wade through my list. I know these other guys will as well, and then we'll try to pick the top 12 and then take that to 3. All right, and so that'll be the plan of action.
I think one of the ways that you can kind of think about it would be, as far as a workable number, is you can equate it to engineering firms or architectural firms that you interview in this room, because I suspect one portion of your interview process will be in here, how they present themselves to you, and that usually takes, 20 or 30 minutes apiece. Well, after about 6 it seems like it's a little lost. I don't know that you could do 9 or 12 at that level, but I would think 5 or 6 would be a workable number if that's what you want to probably target. 3 may be hard, just given your candidate pool.
Sure. All right, well, we'll move, I don't think we need to take any further action on this, other than you have
We'll
heard
move
the
it to
comments.
Thursday to
Move
make
it
that
to
first
Thursday, and
cut,
then we'll
yeah.
take that first cut. All right, and that in form of a motion without objection, Mr. Commissioner Lynchard. All right, hearing none, it passes. And it's time now, let's be back in place at 10:35, please, and we'll take a 5-minute break. please make your way back to your seats. Okay, we're called back to order. We left off on the administrative committee. Item number 8 is discussion of a list of county-owned property which could be offered for sale. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, in your packet is kind of a shortened list from the one that you saw last time, and these are ones that, again, when you see the quote sale out there, this was just Public Works. There's no Public Works necessarily reason to keep these. Normally, where that would be with a drainage easement or a retention pond or something like that, and you kind of see the notes there. Most of these are isolated orphan parcels that are landlocked that the county has received through tax deed sales. There are a couple of parcels. The first one on at the top of the list is the half acre that the county bought adjacent to the Live Oak Street or Holly Point boat ramp. That's one you could sell. I mean, you bought it for the potential parking on that. It has waterfront frontage. The other is the 6-acre parcel that I believe is about the 3rd or 4th line down that we had purchased at the intersection of Old Baghdad Highway and Pine Forest Road. And quite frankly, we wouldn't recommend that you would sell that. That ultimately is property that you bought to if you expand your public works or there's any other public facility needed out there. That was what the thought was at that time. And we've really, due to finances, we've not gone back to the looking at that, but that would be another parcel. You may want to look through these others. Look like they're wetlands. I don't know that you need to sell any wetlands right now.
And we need to all get the mindset going that we can use these wetlands, especially as they occur in and around areas that had the flooding problems.
Absolutely.
And have our engineers that are working those flooding problems be aware of that availability. I mean, specifically in my area, in Commissioner Lynchard's area, there's a lot of stuff in Holly by the Sea that could readily be converted to holding ponds. So this is a good starter, and I appreciate it, and we will peruse it.
There is one other piece of property that is on here, and it's just an out piece on Patterson Town Road, and the county attorney's office had been contacted about purchasing that. So, and we have no reason for it. And I believe, so one of the items that we'd like to have on Thursday's agenda would be to authorize going out, soliciting proposals to sell that. I believe it's and set a minimum bid of whatever the taxes are. It's what you did, I believe, whatever you did before, or what was owed on it, if I recall.
And that's the one that's highlighted in yellow?
Yes.
Okay. Does the board have problems with moving that particular parcel forward to Thursday, since we have a willing buyer potentially? I would recommend we move this to Thursday to explore the willing buyer and see what kind of offer they make us, and I'll do so without objection.
Sir.
Would you like to make some comment, Carl? All right.
Sir.
Only thing, Mr. Chairman, rather than soliciting that willing buyer, we'd have to go out for bid.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, that's a correction on that, yes.
And if you wish to set a minimum bid, you could. You, of course, don't have to. The appraised value of the property through the property appraiser's office is just a little north of $1,400.
Yeah.
Fair market value is probably more $3,000 to $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know if you want to set a minimum bid on a I think it's .016 or .16 acres. Yeah, .17.
Yeah, I stayed in my private property owner mode there instead of, we'll have to put this out for bids. Carl, yes, sir.
Just have some general questions. This is something that's fairly new to me. I've been interested in the meetings for several years, for over a decade, and I've never heard a discussion of the county selling land before. I've always heard them acquiring land. So I just wondered was there a special impetus at this time to?
Yes, sir. There was.
What's the general direction?
Somebody brought to my attention the total number of acreage held in inventory by Santa Rosa County, and it was a very large number. Of course, that contained right-of-ways and all those sorts of things, but when you cull through all that, when you set those aside and then look at things that there is no reasonable governmental purpose for, and this list is what was produced when we asked the staff to look at our real estate holdings and identify the holdings that there was no reasonable governmental purpose for us owning and that we could sell and put back on the tax roll. That's why this list was generated.
Okay, well, one reason I was interested, I brought up that specific thing probably 10 years ago when we were talking about looking for a place for a courthouse then, and I think I went on the website and saw about 4,000 parcels we owned at that time. So is this list posted on the website now for citizens to look at?
Yeah, we'll make sure it is. It's part of the backup material here, and then there was a much larger list which included our industrial parks. Obviously, all of those are for sale. And the parks and the other acreage. So we'll make sure both of those on the website if they're not easy to get to. It's in the backup material.
Was this property scanned through when we started our search for our courthouse to see if there was anything suitable for the courthouse at that time?
I think if you just look through it, you'll see that there's the largest parcel there I see that catches my eye is 6 acres, or is there a bigger piece that somebody else sees? These are not. 20 acres. Yeah, there's a 20 acre. But and it's also wetlands. Yeah.
But Carl,
and we're going to look at this stuff for drainage issues, et cetera, because we're setting about trying to resolve our stormwater problems. And so the stuff that's good usable land in our hands,
right.
These wetlands probably will pull off of this list.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Carl, we just spent about 3 months going through looking at all the East Milton sites, a significant portion of which are located in our industrial park. We looked at a number of sites in the 160 acres that are north of the park, of all the acreage that's open acreage that's between the jail, if you will, and the airport going to the west, and also what's the I-10 part. We looked at all the property that the county owned. We just spent 3 or 4 months trying to cull that down.
Yeah, well, that's what we asked you to do before, was look through it and see what might be suitable, and some of the citizens have been doing that. So I think it's high time we look at managing our property more efficiently, and so I'm sure that y'all will do a very good job on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Carl, just as a reminder also, when I first got on the board 12 years ago, there was a building up on Stewart Street on the west side called Golden Treasures. And we were looking at demoing that building and then the property sitting vacant. And I brought to the board, and the board approved us selling that piece. And then the same way with downtown, the old court reporter building downtown right beside the memorial. We recently sold that. And then I think another one that we should probably look at is the building that the health department just vacated. We have a building up there by the high school, and look at putting that building on the market.
Right. And thank you.
I would like you to consider prioritizing any funds raised from this to go into that pot to build that courthouse. Yes, sir. To keep from having to add another tax dollar to the citizens.
Yes, and we're doing all we can to knock that bill down. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Romy White, 5775 R&R Lane. What is the plan for the 300-acre parcel that lies north of Santa Rosa Correctional Institute, that the county owns.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Walker or Mr. Blaylock can correct me, but I think that 300 acres north of that correctional facility, it was acquired years ago when there was a plan to expand Peter Prince Airport and build a new runway. And most of that was going to be for the clear zones, if you will. Most of it's, if I recollect correctly, falls off toward the Blackwater River, and it's heavy wetlands. I know a few years ago when Commissioner Maples was still here, he wanted to look at it as a potential campground, and that didn't work either, so.
Excuse me, sir. Actually, I believe you're referring to an adjacent parcel that surrounds Cooper Basin, and that was the one that was under consideration. I remember that. Mr. Maples actually held like a town hall at what was our home at that time. I used to live on Cooper Basin. This is actually property where actually the Cooper Cemetery is. It's located east of Cooper Basin. So there's a couple of large parcels, and of course some of them do slope toward the river, but there is a lot of land higher than that. And I'm wondering, you know, what's the plan with those lands?
We'll take another look at it.
Thank you.
All the property out there that's upland is zoned industrial, and that's currently being marketed by the IEDO, Economic Development Office. I mean, that's the only part that's not industrial is that is, I think there's the 50-foot slope that goes down to the wetlands and everything, but that's all marketable, all it's zoned industrial. We all looked at that for property for the courthouse just now, as Carl mentioned.
Okay, I'm talking about the parcel that lies north of the Correctional Institute on the east side of the power lines. There's a 300-acre parcel there.
We'll take another look at it,
Thank
but
you.
we'd asked the staff to identify stuff that could be disposed of, and obviously it was something that they deemed something we should hold.
But
Okay,
it's for sale. If we own it, it's for sale if it's that big.
Yep. Okay,
Make us an
so
offer.
moving on, next we moved item 8 to Thursday without objection. Item number 9 is discussion of amendment number 1 to the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence contract for the Domestic Violence Grant Program and authorize execution of the relevant documents. Details are in the backup. If there's any discussion from the board, anybody in the audience, I move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 10 is discussion of applicants for the current Florida Flood Mitigation Assistance Program grant cycle for 8 repetitively flooded properties. Item number 10, Mr. Walker, would you lead us through that, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is kind of a placeholder. As Ms. Harris is not here, we went through the process of this annual cycle with Florida Department of Emergency Management. We have additionally identified 40 property owners to try to identify eligibility for the grant funds, and that these do two things. They either elevate homes or acquire homes that have been on the repetitive loss list or the severe repetitive loss list, which means that FEMA has invested flood insurance funds in those. So you see the addresses there. These, as I understand, would all be elevations, and these would potentially, we're working on those applications now, and would like to get approval on Thursday if we could. This is a 75% federal money, and then the local homeowner is responsible for the 25%. Our only cost is the amount that we staff invests in it for the development of the applications.
All right, sir. Thank you. Anybody from the public have a question on this item? Do you have something for this item, Ms. Cantu? All right.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East Milton. Does this mean that these people that have been flooded out several times before are having their houses redone again?
This means there's a federal program that if they have received repetitive losses or severe repetitive losses, that the federal government has set up a grant program for either have them elevate their homes or to purchase the homes. We've not participated in the purchasing homes by matter of policy, but we have assisted folks with the elevations.
And is this going to be the last time they're helped in repairing their homes?
Yeah, I believe if once that their home is elevated, I don't believe that they can apply for other. I don't know. I mean, but it's with the federal government. We don't control that.
The elevation usually resolves their problems. I've been to several
If you're
homes
going
in
to
the
elevate
Gulf
it, you
Breeze
need to
area.
get it up out of the flood zone.
And is that going to be stipulated as a condition that this is the last time they're helped? And
Those are
I don't have any
federal issues.
idea.
We don't get to set those things. All we do is identify the people and hook them into the program. Well, actually, this is a Florida issue. This is the Florida version of the federal issue, so it's a state issue, not a county issue. They set the rules for it, and we just go through the hoops.
And do we notify them of places that, hey, this place floods every time there's a flood, so we don't want to do anything with it anymore?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. They are very much aware of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And we'll move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 11 is discussion of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Land and Water Conservation Fund grant in the amount of $200,000 for improvements to the Baghdad Mill site, requiring a local match of $80,000. Backup is in the book. It's a good program. Unless there are questions from the board or comments from the public.
I think there was one question about the outstanding $80,000 for the local match. Is the Land and Water Conservation Fund will match dollar for dollar up to 50% of the total cost. We've offset a number of those costs, but I believe there's still $80,000 that we've not accounted for. I think Mr. Compton was going to speak to that. Ms. Harris is not here today, but Mr. Compton had indicated that he was going to speak to that.
Thank you, Commissioners. Vernon Compton, 5149 Santa Rosa Street, Milton. First of all, congratulations on the grant. I know a lot of work went into securing. It's a very competitive process and very large grant that would leverage not only county staff, the great work that you've done on the site already, but the Tourism Development Council funds that are going toward the project too. This would be phase 2, so it's some really important elements of the project, and we're still missing a piece of the money that's needed to move it forward. Of course, I can't speak on behalf of the committees and the TDC right now, but I can tell you, as evidenced by the support of the TDC for a very long time, that this is a priority project. And if we could bring it back to the committees and the TDC for further discussion, I know we'd want to work with you to try and find some sort of solution to meet that gap in the match.
Yeah. Thank you, Vernon. This is something that is universally supported throughout the community, throughout the county. It's going to be a wonderful addition to what we have for our historic tourism. We'll move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the $80,000, are we going to pursue the TDC funds for that?
Yes, sir. The TDC's taking a very close look at that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Question, I didn't understand Sheila's statement, and I'll get it clarified with her, but it says, the last comment she says is, I believe there is at least $68,000 in remaining TDC allocations to support the cash match, and public works in kind is approximately $52,000. That seems to me it well exceeds that, but the other thing I want to, of the $80,000, the other thing I want to make sure we look at, we were fortunate enough to have 3C's Construction remove the concrete at no charge to us. We need to put a value to that and apply that as on that too, Vernon.
We'll, yeah, Mr. Walker will help us remember that for Sheila to make sure that she picks that up. So that every little bit helps. Okay, we will move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 12 is discussion of the modification to the Florida Division of Emergency Management extending the Ramblewood Drive Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP project. And that's item number 12. Mr. Walker, are you going to handle that, or is that
And you
Mr. Blaylock?
see the letter in your packet is it had been approved by the state and FEMA. They're extending the grant, and it's due to the delay in the issuance of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permitting.
Okay. We move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 12 is discussion of scheduling public hearing on amendment to ordinance 2012-01 regarding the economic development incentives, correcting a numerical error. Details are in the backup. This is a ministerial detail. I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 14 is discussion of Mad Dash for Missions 5K run on the Woodbine Road, Saturday, July 26, 2014, in neighborhoods adjacent to the Woodbine United Methodist Church. I move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 15, the public hearing scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Thursday, June the 12th, 2014, be a vacation of a plat including lots 1, 4, and 9 of Block 3, Florida Town Edition, as requested by Steve Blanton. Recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 16, Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, these were the was a contract for the monitoring from DEP on the monitoring of the Navarre Beach renourishment project. You should have a copy of that. I'll make sure that you do. It came in Friday afternoon. That includes the amount that we will get from the state on the monitoring in that ongoing project. So we would move that forward Thursday to approve and get that started. It's a 50-50 match. They pay for half the monitoring, we pay for the other half.
And that will take place when we receive funds for the renourishment, right? I mean, we're not going to.
If I may, Commissioner, this is the ongoing contract for our 06 renourishment. Our grant agreement said we would monitor it throughout its life of X amount of years. This is the final year. This will be the nexus by which we actually develop plans and specs for the next phase.
Thank you for that clarification. I didn't have anything in my backup, so that was, obviously it's an add-on. Is that it? I thought this was more than one thing. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I recommend we move the contract to monitor the renourishment of Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Next up is engineer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Our first item is a discussion of a modification, number 1, to task order number 27, number 27 task order for CH2M Hill for the Navarre Beach Clarifier Rehabilitation Project. This project was a congressional appropriation that funded a percentage of this grant. We went to contract, and the contractor's material supplier it'll be item number 2 we're going to discuss, actually provided an inadequate, unacceptable structural member. Our CH2M Hill rejected it, and we went through a series and a process by which we were able to get appropriate shop drawings that were acceptable and the installation of the appropriate. This cost the engineer and our consultant additional dollars, and this task order credit allows us to budget those dollars, but we're taking it in step number 2. We're going to take that $18,000 out of the contractor's final pay request.
Okay, I recommend we move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
And then item number 2 is the actual change order that should be contract with Morgan Contracting, Inc. that was on the CH2M form. And the total days with the additional days is, I've got to go back to my backup. I believe it was 573 total days. And so what we do is in that final change order, balance the days.
So this 19 is the right number, not 500?
That is not. That was the original 19 from a previous change order.
So what is the correct number again? You need to speak into the mic so we can all hear you.
Joe, do you have that number right on top of the head?
Mr. Blaylock?
Yes, sir.
You need to speak directly in that mic because we can't hear you.
Yes.
Sir,
I'm
you don't
gonna-
have to come down front.
Yeah. Had it going. Should've shut up.
Joe Klaus with CH2M Hill Engineers, 1766 C Lark Lane, Navarre. The original contract amendment was for 19 days extension. This contract amendment is for 243 days. The original duration was 270 days, so adding all those together, the revised contract time is for 532 days.
Okay, and the reduction, the $18,000 reduction is stated correctly?
Yes,
While
sir.
we're correcting things, I want to be sure we got it all.
That is correct.
Okay. So, it's discussion change order number 2 for the contract with Morgan, what's the name?
Morgan Contracting, Inc.
Morgan Contracting Incorporated for the Navarre Beach Clarifier rehabilitation with a net reduction of $18,000 and 243 additional days.
That is correct, sir.
All right, and I move that to, recommend we move that to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Thank you, sir, for
Mr. Chairman.
clarifying that for us. Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
Joe, while you're here, just good catch on that. You and the engineering department, glad you caught that before we had that thing in place and it gave us problems, so thank you on it.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir, if you will. Mr. Blaylock.
Item number 3 is a discussion of the approval of the preliminary plat for Martinique Place. This is a 28-lot subdivision that's located in Working District 5. And item number 4, they're trying to get the preliminary plat and construction plans, and we will continue to monitor that and make the determination for Thursday's agenda.
Okay, we'll move this to Thursday without objection and see what we have on Thursday. Next.
And that concludes the engineer's report.
Well, you've got 2. You've got item number 4 and an update by Commissioner Lyncher. So item number 4, has that been pulled? Or is that, I'm sorry, that we just dealt with that. My apologies. All right, now, number 5 is Commissioner Lyncher.
Did you move the emergency road repairs to Public Works? You want to do it here in engineering?
Yeah, we can do it either one, whichever is more appropriate. But if you want to go ahead and take it, that's fine.
Is this your item that you added that we're dealing with now? Okay, thank you.
Avis, you want to set it up, and then I'll pick up the emergency road repairs portion?
Just kind of a status of where we are, Avis, on all the repairs around the county. I know there's been a meeting with FEMA. I know we have an RFP out. We're expecting the proposals to come in this week, Tuesday or Wednesday, and that's why we wanted to add on for Thursday authorization for Mr. Walker to go ahead and award those projects to the low bidder meeting specifications. But I just want people to know what's going on. Things are in the pipeline. We have 40 some odd areas that have to be repaired in the county, and we're not sitting back on our heels and just waiting, passing time. Things are happening right now. Those roads are going to be repaired, but there are some steps that we have to take. So if we could get an update on the status of those things as best you can, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir, and that's, if you're talking specifically to the pavement repairs where we had base failure and the pavement is damaged in a number of areas, yes, we have, engineering department has already had a pre-bid meeting with contractors. Those proposals should be in, Roger, Wednesday of this week?
That is correct. We had a
Wednesday of this
pre-bid.
week. And so we hope to have contractors mobilized in the very near future making those repairs. Of course, we're working with several different agencies. We're working with FEMA on those repairs as well as many other drainage repairs and erosion repairs throughout the county. We're working with Federal Highway Administration on 3 different projects that we'll talk about a little bit when we get to the Public Works agenda, which will be reimbursed for those as well through Federal Highway. We're working with the Natural Resources and Conservation Service on several potential EWP, emergency watershed projects. So we've submitted several of those for consideration. So, yes, sir, there is a lot going on in a lot of different areas and related to the flood and the damages. And so we're trying to recoup all the funding we can from grants and the various federal and state agencies that provide that reimbursement.
Okay.
And I think it's clear from your statement there, but we're not waiting for that to get these repairs done. We're waiting on our bids to come back and contracts to be awarded. We're going to go ahead and the repairs are going to be done. The fact that we may be applying for grants and things of that nature, that's not going to hold up these repairs. As soon as those contractors are able to get started, we're going to move forward with these repairs throughout the county.
That's correct. One good bit of good news to report is we've already been working on East Bay Boulevard 399 that's been closed, and we anticipate having the contractor do the paving. All the pipe have been relayed. The paving is scheduled for tomorrow morning. If all goes well with that, with no breakdowns, we'll open up 399 by late tomorrow afternoon. There'll still be some striping and shoulder work, some vegetating, things like that to do, but we can open up the roadway and do those things with the roadway open. And then the crew that we've had working on that will immediately move to the Sherwood Drive and Hollywood Sea, where we have another road closed, and begin work to get that road back open. So we are making very good progress.
Okay. And that's an example where the county went ahead and did the work because we didn't want to wait on sending it out to a third party. Something that the county could do, something we could go ahead and jump on and get done. So I appreciate
yes,
the
sir.
work.
That is actually one of the three federal highway, the FHWA projects. And by us doing the work as an emergency repair, we are eligible to receive 100% reimbursement for that by doing the work with our forces. Yeah. And so that's a good project for us to be able to recoup everything we spent.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the update, and I know that engineering, public works, public services, we've got a lot of men and women in those departments who have been putting in long hours, a lot of overtime trying to get the county put back together, and we really do appreciate everything that they've done.
Right, and one thing we didn't mention was those two drainage washouts in Grand Canal. We have consultants working on that. We're doing one in-house, and we anticipate getting those proposals back sometime this week. And we'll just check and see how quickly we can move. Those are a little bit specialized, and it's going to require additional permitting, particularly dredging those canals because of the issue related to the Army Corps of Engineers.
I'm glad you brought that up. Those two, there's one on Grand Canal and then the other kind of in Settlers Colony over there on Venetian Way. Those are the two blowouts that went into the canal, deposited all of that material into our canal system, and it's not as simple as us just going in there and dredging that. There are permitting issues that we have to overcome before we can go in and do that. There are some that can be bypassed, some permits, to bring that back to the baseline, to where it was before the storm, before the flood. But there are other permits that we do have to acquire before we can go in there and get those dredged. And Roger's department is working on acquiring the appropriate permits so that we can get started on those canals.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Cantu, do you have?
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. Has any consideration being given to things that we're doing that we shouldn't do, or things that we're not doing that we should do, as far as grasses that we plant to absorb more of the moisture? I know I've watched the people cut the grass on the side of the road, and they cut it down to so short. To me, it seems like it has no ability at all to soak up the water. And I'm sure that there are a lot of places where when you're dredging and you're actually dredging up stuff that would absorb the water, maybe you shouldn't do that. Is any thought being given to that?
Yes, ma'am. There's careful consideration being given to those issues. Thank you for your question. We appreciate you. Next up is Public Services, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 items. Item number 1 is discussion of accepting the following grants and authorize execution of all related documents. The Emergency Management Performance Award, EMPA, for $105,806, and the Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG, for $75,389. There's backup material in your agenda. Any questions? If not, I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2 is an update of the Emergency Communications Project, and I'll ask Mr. Gomillion to bring us up to speed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a presentation on this. Brad, if you want to go ahead and be coming towards the mic. As you recall, we had made an initial presentation to the board some months ago that sort of laid out the framework and asked permission to move forward with meeting with Escambia and others relative to a regional project. Brad will do a short presentation or kind of an update on that. We will be, at the end, you'll see a timeline there. We will need some direction by early next year in order to meet the timelines that we're looking for. But at this point, we'll just let Brad do the presentation and we can answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll do a quick recap just to bring everybody up to speed on our current system. We won't belabor it very long. Our radio communication system network, it was developed in the 1970s, and of course it was designed for 100-watt mobile radio coverage. Since then, the many years we've made improvements to provide adequate coverage for our county, whether that be mobile or portable coverage. The FCC narrowbanding mandate was completed in December of 2012. Our current methods that we use, the limitations that are noted on those, and the effects of narrowbanding, we have tower loading issues. All of our county towers, communication towers, are at the maximum loading capacity that is allowed by the Rev G standards. Interoperability, since the narrowbanding, we have seen a deterioration with the Moto Bridge patch, which is a patch that the state has put in across our region to allow us to tie channels together. And also our console patch, which is an internal thing that Motorola has with our consoles that allow us to connect the two consoles together. Both of them have seen a serious deterioration since we went to narrowbanding. Probably a overall estimated 10% reduction in our coverage because of the FCC narrowbanding. And then we have end-of-life equipment, as I briefed y'all before, and we have another slide on that. So we have some crowded spectrum, and Sergeant Hawkins with the Sheriff's Department wants to talk a little bit about this. This is a audio clip from our EMS.
11:15 for info. 15, you're going to have a 37 female. She's conscious alert, some abnormal breathing, abnormal but effective. 104, 15, apologize for that. Chief complaint today of possible blood clot in the left leg, severe pain to that leg. 15 copies all in house from Post 1.
And then from our Sheriff's channel.
37. Unit 37. Hey, Laura. 37, interference. Gotcha. What was your last traffic? Thanks, Laura. About PSC Milton. Several.
And Sheriff George Hawkins wants to talk a little bit about the crowded spectrum.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. This has actually become a more serious problem than what it has been in the past. It's always been a problem, but now, since the spectrums that we operate in are becoming so crowded, this is what you heard there was called co-channel interference. I'm not going to get real technical with that, but that is some outside agency transmitting at the same time that we are trying to transmit and basically overcrowding our channel so that we can't be heard. It's not isolated. These are not just a couple of events. As a matter of fact, the sheriff's transmission that you just heard was a morning where it actually went on for hours. and that can be very frustrating. We feel as if this is a life-threatening issue. Imagine if you are a law enforcement officer needing help and can't get it because you can't be heard. We've tried everything that we can possibly think of to try to mitigate this problem. We now have no more resolutions. It's just too much of a crowded spectrum. We feel as if the true resolution to all of this, of course, is what we're recommending here today in our proposal. Thank you very much.
So part of our 5-year plan, we are in the pre-planning actions as directed by the board, and we'll provide updates, but I want to follow up with that. And you see in the 14-15, we would have to start the procurement process, the permitting, et cetera, and then switch over to the new system in 15-16, constructing the new infrastructure, followed by that, and then we would need to monitor the coverage compliance of the system. We feel like the Motorola model that they have given us, they have really been conservative in their coverage maps, and so we'd like to get a new system up and running before we say we need this much additional infrastructure. Let us test the system ourselves. So you see with the coverage area, and you notice the areas on the northeast side of our county, we do recommend that we proceed with a additional tower to that area to capture that gaps. But any of the other, we feel like we would want to see the coverage, realize what it is before we move forward. So the new system timeline, basically the mutual use and interagency agreements that we would have to do with whatever direction you give us would take 6 to 8 months. Contract review with the attorneys would take approximately 2 months. Design approval, 2 weeks. Ordering and processing it, about 4 months. Developing the site and installation, 7 months. Then audit and acceptance testing, another 2 weeks. And then it would take us about 1 month to cut over. So that gives us a time frame of 21 to 23 months. End-of-life equipment, our dispatch consoles in all of our public safety agencies are the same, and they're actually end of life now. 2017, Motorola will no longer support any product of that, so we will have to replace them. Total cost of that would be right around $1 million. A little note is, if we replace the end-of-life equipment, that will not address any of our infrastructure issues. All that will do is replace the end-of-life console with a new console. We'll still be on the same system, the same degradation that we're experiencing now. So we need a decision on the direction that you would like us to take by January of 2015 to have this in place prior to the end of support on our current consoles. The proposed 700, 800 trunk system, which we've talked about, it will increase our interoperability. It is a regional approach, the ability to connect Escambia County, City of Pensacola, and Santa Rosa County agencies. Depending on who all joins into that, be split maintenance costs between either 2 or 3 agencies. We do have better in-building coverage with a 700, 800 trunk system. Increased channel capacity and grouping of those. Capability to communicate with state agencies as they are on the 800 megahertz system. And then it's a long-term solution that is expandable. We're kind of getting into the IT world of radios, and you can expand on them where our system, analog system that was designed many years ago, just doesn't allow for expansion. So the progress update is we have met with Escambia County. We feel like this is our best option for interoperability and connectivity. We can do connectivity a couple different ways, whether it's a microwave hop or a fiber feed over there. The City of Pensacola, we've been in discussion with them. They're still having some internal discussions on the partnership and the financial ability for them to partner with Escambia and ourselves. And we have met with Baldwin County, and this is another viable option for us. However, Escambia County is our main mutual aid partner, so interoperating through their core is a better platform for us in interoperability world. But it is a viable alternate. Initially, there will be lower maintenance costs for that, but then depending on what Baldwin County does with their statewide system as to how much the maintenance costs will be. And obviously, you have a higher connectivity cost. It would take multiple microwave hops to get over there, or you would have have to have a dual fiber connection over there, which obviously is based off of mileage. So the cost to implement on a Scambia's core with the RF equipment, all of the site equipment, an IP-based radio recorder, the new MCC 7500 consoles, mobile radios and portable radios, and the upgrade to the Escambia County Master Core. Total project, including the discounts, would come out at $6,879,000. The additional cost for that eastern tower that I showed you where the gap was identified would be about $400,000. And I did want to note that this is based on the Houston-Galveston Area Council contract pricing, which is a state contracting venue. Motorola has looked at all of the contracting capabilities, and this is the cheapest. Escambia County used this when they purchased their original system. So if we wanted to do a different mechanism, this price here is based on utilizing that one and some of the Alabama contracting. So funding, Motorola does offer a lease, 7 to 10 years, depending on the down payment. Use this example here that they gave us. Both assume a $2 million down payment and 1 year deferred. For a 7-year, it'd be $742,000 annually. For a 10-year, it'd be $555,000 annually. Our Intergovernmental Communications Program, or ICP, we have a balance of just over $1 million in that. And our average annual revenue, based off the last 5 years average, was just over $131,000. We have seen a decrease in the recent years, whether that is less tickets or throwing them out of the court more or whatever. We've seen a decrease in that. And our anticipated annual maintenance cost would be about $243,000. This includes our portion of the maintenance of the core with Escambia County. However, it does not include the system upgrade agreement. And basically, like I said, we're getting into an IT world. So Motorola offers a program that says you pay us, in our case, it'd be $114,000 a year, and we'll keep you up to date forever. Escambia has indicated to us that they're not looking at doing that agreement, and if the core doesn't have that agreement, all our ancillary stuff won't need that agreement. We would just pay whenever the functionality time came that we need to upgrade, we would pay for that software upgrade. So, and that's all I have on my presentation, and I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. I have one just right off the bat. Now, these dollars you're talking about, those are all Santa Rosa County dollars, or is this going to be distributed over Escambia, Santa Rosa?
These are all Santa Rosa County dollars.
Okay, so their part of this is whatever that is, and this is just our part to
That
make
is
us
correct.
interface with Escambia County and the city of Pensacola.
That is correct. They will be doing their own part of the project if they decide to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, this also being able to go to Escambia hinges on a LOST vote that they're going to have in November. Mm-hmm. They have to upgrade their microwave system and do some stuff on their end, and it will be dependent upon that vote. So if that falls through, then the Baldwin option would probably be our best, because we would have to, we couldn't upgrade their core to get it to where we want to be.
And is this the only other alternative out there? This is a very, very expensive proposition you're talking about. Are there alternatives that would get the job done that wouldn't cost us as much money?
There's not. We've looked at several different options, and all of them are in the $10 to $15 million range. So that's why we felt like this, partnering with Escambia, because they already have this core that is, with the upgrade, would be capable of handling the amount of volume that is needed on that core. And the only other option would be to continue in the world that we're in now and build up the infrastructure to support it.
What about grants and federal funding and that sort of thing?
We have applied for several. We've got a potential of a small one through SHISGAP, which is the Homeland Security Program, which would only offset, what was it, George, a couple $100,000. And that one's, we got a tentative approval, but not on the full amount, so that one's still up in the air. The others have been denied. Interoperability grants have pretty much dried up. There are some monies that once we have a system in place, that we can add on to the system, such as buy portable radios, buy mobile radios, and things like that. But you have to have the system in place before the federal dollars become available.
I can tell you, just my last comment, and then I'll open it up to the board, that this is pretty close to 8% of the total budget of Santa Rosa County. And it's going to be very, very difficult to come by. And right now, and I know that Ms. Bell is banging out a budget, but I don't know where in the world we'd find that kind of money. So be advised, there may be other options you're going to have to look at. And I'll open it up to the rest of the board at this time. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Brad, I understand what we have here, but, and we're looking at 2 years out. What do we, with the problems I heard over that recording, what do we do? Is there anything we can do on the short term? Because that's not, just like you said, that's not safe. A deputy or a citizen or whatever, anything at all we can do to improve that immediately, and then certainly we need to take a hard look at this.
We have made several attempts to fix that problem. We have even recently replaced one of the transmitters. We've seen a little bit of improvement, but we're doing everything we can to shore up the current system, other than adding towers, which are very costly, adding receiver sites and additional transmitters. I mean, we're dealing with old technology, so you can only, accomplish so much with that.
How much are towers? How much are towers?
How much towers? Probably about $400,000 per tower. And understand that we're going to gain a lot of coverage out of the 700, 800 with narrow banding on VHF and UHF. You're going to have to put lots of towers to get the coverage that you're going to need.
How about any conversation with, we've got a lot of towers now, Mediacom, Cox, any communication or any way we can discuss some sort of mutual aid with them? Just a thought. I mean, certainly don't know this system, but I didn't know if, they say if they'd allow us to put an antenna on their tower or something.
Well, most of their towers are close to where our tower's already at. They're not looking to put a tower up in Munson because the volume of customers is just not there. So that's where we need all these ancillary towers. We have a 500-foot central tower, which gives us real good coverage. We do need to expand some off. I mean, it's just, what direction does the board want us to take?
Well, we want you to look at all the alternatives before you come and ask us for a $7 million fix. Water towers are great. Now, the stuff up in J, can you partner off of those? I just want to know if you've looked at it.
Yeah, we use about 5, maybe 6 water towers right now. Just the height of the water tower, and also they won't let you put anything on the top of the water tower, so you're limited to the beam around it.
Okay, now they is the federal government or the owner of the water tower?
Well, the owner of the water towers. Okay. And then also you're putting more wind load upon the water towers, and you're causing them a lot of. Some water companies will not allow us to do it at all, and some have been really good partners over time.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to monopolize this, Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I've been serving on the County Communication Committee now, I guess, the last 2 or 3 years. We've been looking at this issue. We knew it was coming. We looked at all the different alternatives. We looked at potential funding and when the equipment will become obsolete. And I think we're to the point now where we're going to have to start replacing equipment, looking at new systems. Brad, you talked about the lease program. Is that lease to purchase?
Yes, it is.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I would like to see us do is to direct Brad and Tony Gomegan and his group to look at a couple of potential funding plans. Here again, like you said, $7 million is a chunk to come out of 1 year's budget. But let's look at what some type of annual fee may be. And let's start looking at, how we're going to better fund public safety. So that'd be my recommendation.
Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioner Salter there. I think, there are alternatives, and it's going to be a bite. It's not going to be a pleasant expenditure, but it's something that we have to do. I mean, it's absolutely unacceptable, the quality of those transmissions that we're having now. that's just something that we have to fix. That's an issue of basic public safety and officer safety. So I think we need to move forward with investigating that. Relying on Escambia County or Baldwin County for the core, what happens down the road if they switch to another system? Is that a possibility?
It's not because of the investment they had to make.
Okay.
I mean, it would cost us an additional probably $3 to $4 million for us to own our own core. So they have that investment over there. Our partnership with Escambia would actually enhance their core and allow them future growth as well. So, I mean, it's a good partnership. There's just a lot of, obviously, anytime you deal with two different counties that are coming into a new era, there'll be some things we need to work out, and it'll take time to do that.
But when do you anticipate a decision on that? It's going to be after the November elections because they have to go out for the lost before they can know if they can
The direction I've been given by staff is they briefed their management of this. But what they would need is something official from Santa Rosa County that this is the direction that we want to go, so that we can start those deeper discussions and get it in front of their board and make sure their board is on task with us utilizing their core, which they feel like it's a good partnership. They utilize us the same as we utilize them, so they see the need for this. It's just, what I need is some direction in what I need to do to get those steps going, if that's where the board wants to go.
And I'd like to move forward with that as quickly as possible. You mentioned a decision by January, but if we can make a decision now that would enable you to at least start pursuing that, I'd rather do that. We don't need to wait another 6 months if that's going to cost us time down the road. So I'd be open for that, moving forward to give you whatever authorization you need to pursue that with Escambia County.
I would be interested in seeing what the financing options are. I know you hit them. How hard is that information put together? Could you bring that to us Thursday, you think?
I'll defer to Ms. Bell. We've been in communication, so
okay.
I've given her a lot of information. So,
well, I mean, if there's a way to smooth this cash flow thing out, I mean, it's not a matter of whether or not we support the program. We 100% support the program. Our job is to try to find a way to pay for it.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm asking is we would like to see those options, so that.
I think that would be the decision for Thursday would be to direct staff to come back with you with some funding options, cash flow options, as you even as Commissioner Salter said, even with your down payment, if you will, and then also maybe the authorization to move forward with Escambia County on using their backbone or their spine system.
Sure, but we need to, before we start it, we need to know that we're going to be able to complete it, and so I'd like to see what those financing options are.
Yes, sir.
So that we can make an intelligent, informed decision here.
I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but Escambia actually has a meeting the 26th of this month. They are moving forward regardless of what happens with the LOST in November. They put it on their agenda for this month on the 26th. So we'll know before too long.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I guess we'll move this to Thursday without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3.
Discussion of appointment of Shane Nation to the SHIP Advisory Committee as recommended by that committee. I'll move this to Thursday unless there's any objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4, discussion of approval by resolution and a release of restrictive covenant, a request from Loaves and Fishes Soup Kitchen for the sale of 6912 Overman Street, Milton, Florida 32583, and that the condition of the sale be to a low-income family. This was an issue that we had discussed a few months ago. Unless there's any further discussion, I'll move it to Thursday without objection.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to look into this a little bit more. I've been on the housing board now the entire length of time I've been on the board, and it just doesn't seem prudent to me. This You know, in '08, there was $250,000 provided for 2 properties. This time, they're going to sell one for $63,000. You know, even if they sell the other for a similar amount, that's half the money lost. And I just, before we move forward, between now and Thursday, I'd like to take a harder look at this and come back possibly with some recommendations to the board.
Okay. If you'll maybe reach out to Loaves and Fishes and see if you can get your questions and concerns answered, and we'll take it up again on Thursday then.
Thank you.
I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5 is discussion of approval of a grant application to the Department of Economic Opportunity for a South Santa Rosa County Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan, and there is no matching requirement. Just back up in the material, Mr. Gomillion, do you want to say anything about this? Or?
No, sir, unless you have a question.
Any questions? All right, then I'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes Public Services.
Public Works Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 3, we've already taken 1 and 2 off the agenda. Discussion of request from Pace Water System for easement at the Santa Rosa Soccer and Horse Complex for installation of a reuse line and a reuse water ground storage tank. We got all the backup documentation in our book. We have Damian Boutwell here from Pace Water this morning to bring us up to speed on or answer any questions on this particular project. Damian?
Good morning. Thank you all. We recently applied for and received a matching grant from the Northwest Florida Water Management District to extend the reclaimed water up Temecula Highway from Luther Fowler Road to the soccer complex. I've been in talks there with Stephen Furman in the past. I understand I think y'all currently run 4 irrigation wells there to irrigate into that site. Approximately $400 or $500 a month just power to running those wells. We're looking at running the line on up there. I mean, you'd have reuse available on it. We use it already at the Para Park. I don't remember the other one right down below our office off Woodbine there. That one is irrigated with reclaim as well. Basically, 2 things we're looking at is easement going into the park there. And then we're also asking for the board to consider giving us an easement to put a future ground storage tank there. Our master plan just was updated in 2013. The soccer complex is on the northern end and basically on the fringe as far as what we can pump to and service. We're with a reliable level of service there. At some point in the future, as demand grows, demand on that line itself, we're going to need that additional storage capacity and additional pumping facility. So we're looking at something in that area, basically the soccer complex, Willard North Road, that's pretty much the limit. So what we're asking for is, if the board would give us an easement somewhere there, another ground storage tank, similar to what we have there going at Stonebrook going into South Link. And I think it's 35 foot tall, basically 100 foot diameter ground storage tank and a small pumping facility. That would be something that would service the entire area and all there for years to come.
Okay. And Damian, you mentioned the amount of water that we're using on the soccer complex now. Is it your intention to replace that water from the wells with this reuse water? Or?
Yes, I mean, there's no requirement to abandon the wells or anything. I mean, you still have them as a backup, but simply would not need to be utilized.
Okay. Commissioner Salter, this is your district, so.
Mr. Chairman, I support this, Damon. I think it's a great thing that we continue to move it north. I'm looking at the schematic here. The tank here again will be comparable to the low-profile tank at Stonebrook.
Correct, ground storage tank.
And it would be constructed basically just behind the little fire station there.
That was just a corner we figured to stick it to. We're open sites, as far as within the site anywhere there. That just seemed like a little corner over, being a corner itself, and it's a little less utilized as more of the open space would be.
Yeah, and I like that area, and that was going to be my point I think that'd be good use in that corner there versus trying to move it out in the center or someplace. So I totally support it.
We do have our Public Works Director.
We don't have any objection to this. I would like Mr. Boutwell to confirm that you would do all the Pace Water would provide all the surveying and legal description and all for the easement, and then at the time of construction, there would be no pavement cutting. Is that correct? It would all be jack and bore, directional bore.
That is correct. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? If not, we'll move this to Thursday without objection.
Thank you.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes this report.
All right, sir, Budget Finance, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Item number 1 is discussion of bids received from one compact track loader for road and bridge. Low bidder meeting specification is Beard Equipment with a bid of $77,799. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is discussion of rejection of bids received for the front mount self-propelled broom for road and bridge and rebid it. Do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-135 in the amount of $925 to carry forward crime prevention funds and allocate for the Sheriff's Office expenditure in the fine and forfeiture fund. I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-136 in the amount of $141,528 to recognize Federal Home Program, or HUD, grant and allocate the first-time home buyer per Escambia Consortium interlocal agreement in the general fund. I move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5 is discussion of budget amendment 2014-137 in the amount of $16,662 to allocate 9/11 funds as required to repair existing dispatch console equipment, $8,942, and to replace 6 chairs for the 911 center, $7,720 from the Enhanced 911 Program Fund. Move that to Thursday without objection.
I have a question. Is that correct? 6 chairs at $7? That's more than $1,000 a chair.
I think that those are the ones that our dispatchers sit in. I believe they're ergonomically designed for whatever that is. I remember the same discussion when we bought those chairs. I mean, it was, I mean, I guess they're in there 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah, we've got some, I believe, some backup that kind of goes through,
That's just the first time I'd seen it. I don't object
some of
to
the
it.
history on that.
It was an eye popper. All right, we move that to Thursday without objection.
Number 6, discussion of budget amendment 2014-138 in the amount of $48,175 from economic development reserves for the Industrial Park Rail Spur rehabilitation as approved at the May 22nd, 2014 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. Move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And finally is discussion of county expenditures and check register, which I'll go through and have for you on Thursday, so I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes this report.
Mr. Chairman, I did just to remind the board is there were 3 of the agreements that Mr. Whitfield and I had added to the agenda. Actually, we put them on Public Works, didn't matter what they were, but it's the repairs to the Munson Highway Eastgate Road project, the Chumuckle Highway Norris Road project, and then the repairs to 399 Eastgate Boulevard, East Bay Boulevard. And these are just agreements with FDOT that we'll add to the agenda for Thursday.
Hearing that, I'll add that. Should I add that to Public Works for approval to Thursday? Move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is public forum. Name and address, please, ma'am.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. I just wanted to publicly bring something to your attention that I discovered quite by accident. I recently saw Suncoast Landfill's request for a permit from the DEP for a C&D facility to cover their acreage out in East Milton. And when I saw they were pursuing that, I decided to check and see where they stood with the county. When I asked Gerald for information regarding the operation permit and where we stood on the operation permit, I was not receiving the information I thought was necessary to satisfy what I was looking for. So then I went through a public information request and still did not find the information I was looking for. So I went and looked at the file. And in the file dated 12/17/2010 to Gerald Anderson and Roger Blaylock and Becky Cato from Joshua Dalt, who was employed at that time. He states, "We received a letter today from William Dunaway with Clark, Partington, and Hart on behalf of Suncoast Concrete, Kenny Bryan, requesting to extend his operation permit issued by you on March 5th, 2010. I'm not sure why the letter was addressed to Becky, because he included a copy of the letter from you regarding issuance of the operational permit. At that time, that operation permit was renewed for 1 year annually, as it is supposed to be renewed." He continues saying, anyway, the authority he is citing for the extension is FL Florida Senate Bill 1752, 2010. This bill allows for 2-year extensions to a development order or a building permit issued by a local government. I've attached the bill, but here is an excerpt. Section 46(1). Except as provided in subsection 4, a development order issued by a local government, a building permit, and any permit issued by the Department of Environmental Protection or by a water management district pursuant to Part 4 of Chapter 373 Florida statutes, which has an expiration date from September 1st, 2008 through January 1st, 2012, is extended and renewed for a period of 2 years after its previously scheduled date of expiration. Pursuant to this bill, we, Development Services, have been issuing extensions to development orders and building permits that have been issued, which qualify based on the dates specified. In fact, we have extended the development order for this project, which is Suncoast, until 2015. However, it seems pretty clear to me that this bill is not intended to address the types of permits that you issue, but you may want to run this by Angie for an opinion. I will drop this letter off with Tanya for you, and I'm going to write Mr. Dunaway an email to let him know that this letter was incorrectly sent to us, and it was forwarded to you for a response. So, we have Clark, Partington, Hart, Larry, Bond, and Stackhouse asking the Environmental Department to extend the operation permit due to this bill. This bill does not cover automatic extensions of operation permits, and the email from Joshua Dalt to Roger Blaylock and also to Gerald Anderson told them that. He did not think it covered renewing the types of permits that the Environmental Department issues. So what happened? Nobody checked. Nobody made sure what the bill entailed. So the operation permit was incorrectly renewed, not only for 2 years, but for 4 years. Now let me read you this. During the 2010 legislative session, Section 38006, Florida statutes, was again amended to allow the extension of a building permit, which has an expiration date of January 1st, 2008 through January 1st, 2012 for a period of 2 years after its previously scheduled date of expiration. The legislation specifically recognizes that this extension is in addition to the 2-year permit extension provided under Section 14 of Chapter 2009-96, Laws of Florida 2. The amendment further provides that the holder of a valid permit that is eligible for the 2-year extension must notify the authorizing agency in writing by December 31st, 2010. Section 3. Section 4 of the amendment excludes the following from its coverage. So now we're talking about the second mandated automatic extension. This person must have a valid permit in order to get the extra 2 years. If the first permit was incorrectly extended, the first permit does not apply. The second permit is also invalid. Now, as to the intent of this bill, Section 105.4.1, permit intent. A permit issued shall be construed to be a license to proceed with the work and not as authority to violate, cancel, alter, or set aside any of the provisions of the technical codes, nor shall issuance of a permit prevent the building official from thereafter requiring a correction of errors in plans, construction, or violations of this code. Every permit issued shall become invalid unless the work authorized by such permit is commenced within 6 months after its issuance, or if the work authorized by such permit is suspended or abandoned for a period of 6 months after the time the work is commenced. Now, that applies to building codes and development orders. So, if Suncoast, after that first extension, did not start building that construction and demolition facility, even the development order that was extended the second time is invalid. Now, part of this says, a permit issued shall not be construed to be a license to alter any plans. This bill only pertains to development orders and building permits, but the operation permit was extended incorrectly. Big blunder, big mistake, huge mistake. So, I'm looking at the DEP files, and I find out that their operation plan they submitted to the DEP has changed. Has the county environmental department looked at those changes? Or are they still doing invalid extensions on an old operation plan? The operation plan for the DEP states they have taken everything out about spraying of leachate. And this landfill will be built with a simulated wetlands system to control the leachate. This is a series of small canals lined with plastic, filled with plants, that's supposed to take care of the leachate problem. We all know liners don't last forever. This is the wellfield protection area. We do not need leachate in that area. The county stressed that the leachate from this facility was to be hauled off to a waste management facility. And I have a letter here that Mr. Cole did to the Department of Environmental Protection, telling them that this part of the operation plan was incomplete and that this facility should be hauling this off to a wastewater treatment facility. So we have a huge problem, guys. We have an operation permit for a construction and demolition facility in a wellfield protection area that has been extended for 4 years. No payments. Didn't cost the guy anything. And this bill doesn't even cover operation permits. I found this just by mistake, believe me. I didn't want to spend 2 weeks of my life working on this blunder that should never have happened. We have an environmental department, we have an attorney, we have an engineer that should know what this bill covered.
Commissioner,
Yes, ma'am.
let me just say that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Ms. Mahout made some public records requests on this, and we supplied some information to her and made some files available. I was unaware of the situation up until that time, and I called Ms. Mahout to get her to kind of explain to me, and she was kind enough to talk to me on the phone and explain to me. She's given you all some more information this morning that I was not aware of. You all may have been aware of it through emails or what have you, but it wasn't information that I was aware of. We do have counsel that represents us in litigation involving a party that is perhaps similarly situated. Not identically situated, but perhaps similarly. With your permission, I'd like to refer her concerns to the Warner firm, which represents us in that, and let them look at that so that we are certain that we are consistent in our positions for similarly situated people. I'd like to talk to her and get her to share with me a little bit more of what she's telling you all this morning, but we can certainly pursue that. I had told her in our phone conversation that I would pursue it, but again, she's given us some more stuff this morning that I didn't know of anyway.
The main thing here is initially, Joshua Dahl pretty much spelled it out for Gerald and the other people he sent this email to. I do not believe this bill covers the type of permit you are issuing. And boy, was he right. So the problem is, what do you do? Mr. Bryan needs to know that this was a big, big mistake. It started out with his attorney requesting the operation permit be renewed, and they are pretty darn good attorneys. How did they make that blunder? Was it even a blunder? Or was it to get something in writing, saying, oh, your operation permit is extended for 4 more years? And they'll come back and they'll say, you told us, you gave it to us.
I think that the attorney's suggestion is an excellent one, and it's a good starting point to begin to resolve this. So if you would, I forwarded all the material you forwarded to me to the administrator. Copies, I think most of them, to the attorney. If you will get with the attorney and provide her all that documentation, you'll give us an excellent jumping off point to begin to resolve this.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cole.
And if, I don't want to say anything to jeopardize any legal thing we're into right now, but I would have a question for Wallace. Appreciate you doing this, Wallace. I'm concerned with the 4 years. I'm not finding that. I read through this because the letter I'm seeing from Gerald Anderson to Keith Bryant says, shall be required annually by the anniversary date of this approval, leads me to believe that I don't see the 4 years.
That letter came, I think that letter dated previous of their attorney's request, or it was right in the same time frame, but we can get all the dates straight. It was renewed until 2011, and that was all fine. He paid the fees for the 1-year annual renewal. That was that was spot on for that renewal. And then we have two-year renewals after that. That takes it to 2015.
And we'll work that now. If you'll work with us, we'll work it, and we'll pursue it to its end game, whatever that is, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an awful lot of research, and I appreciate you reaching out to me with it. Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. I just wanted to let you know I went to a hearing on Thursday night presented by the Air Force. It was a very elaborate presentation. They had a nice booklet that they gave everybody, and their presentation was essentially saying that they were going to be taking over Blackwater Forest to do their training in. And my problem with that, first of all, is there was no elected official there, nobody from Florida, Santa Rosa County, and I don't know whether you all know about it or not. But I was concerned that, you know, with Eglin Field as close as it is and as large as it is, that they would need anything in addition to that, particularly Blackwater Forest, where so many people from Northwest Florida and even all over the country come to recreate, enjoy the quiet solitude of the forest. And here's a possibility that the Air Force is going to take over and not only damage the area itself, but keep the citizens from being able to enjoy that particular area. There is a deadline of information that you can send to the Air Force, and I think it's the 23rd of June. I would ask, if you all do not know about this, that you find out about it and submit information to disallow the Air Force to use the property. Make sure that the citizens of not only Northwest Florida, but again, the nation, to be able to use this piece of property. One of the things that struck me in their presentation was that they would keep 1,000-foot distance from any eagle nests. And I thought at the time that they're saying that 1,000 feet, their aircraft 1,000 feet from the eagle's nest is going to protect it. And I'm sure they have a much greater distance minimum between their own aircraft. They make statements that they wouldn't cause any damage in the forest, but if they did, they would put it back to where, well, it was to start with, so long as they could. Wouldn't have any four-wheel vehicles off of the roads, but if they did, they would go back and repair. They would make sure that they took all of their waste materials out, and I don't see how they're going to be able to live up to that. They said that they would operate in the forest, and I think that it was about 265 days out of the year, but they would make sure that people knew when they were going to be operating so it wouldn't interfere with other people's enjoyment of the forest. Well, 265 days out of the year is pretty close to a year, which essentially is going to mean that citizens of this area are not going to be able to use this area. And when they were asked about why they didn't use Eglin Field, what I heard was that Eglin has been destroyed to the point where they can't use it for training purposes. Again, I request that the board look into this and help us try to make sure that we keep the Blackwater Forest for civilian use.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Just a few comments of my own on that. A lot of things you stated are materially incorrect. It's not an attack. It's just a statement of fact. It's a state issue. It's not something this Board of County Commissioners is just doing. But what they are asking to do, not demanding to do, is to be able to use the forest, not take over the forest, which is what you said, and that's incorrect. I spent 23 and a half years of my life as an Air Force pilot, working primarily special operations. And these folks move through the woods like a ghost or a spirit. Their very life depends on being able to come and go and leave no sign of their passage. I'm very impressed with their environmental record. Having said that, now, if there's anything, and I wasn't able to make that meeting, but if there's anything contrary to that, then this board will certainly not be in favor of them or anybody else abusing the forest. But from my personal knowledge, and I know the gentleman to my right is a veteran as well and has had some exposure to special forces, the traffic, according to the information that I read, because I was not there, but I read about it, was that the traffic in and out would be on the main roads, on the forest roads, and that the troops would be dismounted, that means on foot, or airborne, rappelling out of a helicopter. And the reason they want to use that is that the Eglin Reservation basically is a weapons testing range, and it's not a maneuver range. It's not safe for people to maneuver. When I was a high school kid, they used Yellow River Swamp, and the Rangers still use Yellow River Swamp for their Ranger training. This is just an expansion of their training, and they're talking about groups of 70 men, which is not a large group in the scheme of things. So we're watching it very carefully, but you need to go back and do some more reading, because the Air Force doesn't propose to take over the forest. They're seeking permission from the state to use it, and they're sharing what they intend to do, which is practice small unit maneuvering in the forest. And like I said earlier, those folks move around like a ghost. I mean, if they're leaving a visible trail, then they're not doing it right.
Then what happened at Eglin Field?
Eglin Field's been used for bomb ranges and gunnery ranges, and this is new to the area. The 7th Special Forces has been in the area for about 2.5 years now, and these guys have a totally different mission than Eglin. Eglin is not an operational Air Force base. It is a testing platform, and they drop stuff on the range out there, and munitions, bombs, ammunition, all sorts of stuff is where that stuff is tested. And so these people are seeking permission, not demanding or not usurping this to use the state forest for small team maneuvering.
If I were in the Air Force trying to get permission to use the forest, I wouldn't say that I'm ready to take it over either. But based on what they said in their presentation, and I would estimate that maybe there were 200 people at the hearing. There was one person that agreed that they should be allowed to use the forest.
I'm open-minded about it. I haven't made up my mind, but I'm just telling you what I know about how the Special Forces operate is that they're very, very environmentally responsible folks. And you couldn't follow them through the forest. You and I couldn't, because it's a real skill, and they know how to do it. And you mischaracterized it. I don't know if you intended to do that or not. They're not demanding to take over the forest. They're asking for permission to use the forest, and they're asking to use the forest for small unit maneuvers, and that's what they're asking for. So you need to keep that in mind as you gather more facts, as we gather more facts. And this is not a closed issue, but
that was something that one of the people brought up, that they were having a problem scheduling it. Mm-hmm. And so someone suggested that they get help with scheduling Eglin test range to do the same thing that they want to do in the forest. But I appreciate your looking into.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate your concern, because it's a very important asset in Santa Rosa County. Nobody wants to see the Blackwater River Forest injured or impaired in any manner. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Commissioner Cole.
I made some comments to one of the news medias about this, and having 3 sons in the military right now and 1 with special ops, I certainly would support their mission and defend what the military does today as far as their scrutiny on the base, either in construction or the base mission when it comes to environment. But as you said, the court's not out on this yet. I've got real concerns with the size of Eglin Air Force Base, that they can't make arrangements for, the use they have there. A lot of planning went into moving the 7 Special Forces here. I would feel like those plans would have entailed this type of thing prior to moving here. So as you said, court's not out on this, and I haven't made up my mind on it, but I will continue to defend how our military bases and all our military branches are responsible for our environment today. Of course, certainly years ago they weren't. I was at Whiting Field in the 70s when we had some concerns out there that probably still there today. But I know today for a fact the military is very, very scrutinized on the environment. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Wallace Mahout, 5500 Cox Road, Milton, Florida. With a show of hands, can I see how many of you are in favor of the military using the forest?
Based on the information available today, I've already stated mine. Right now, based on what I know right now, and based on my intimate knowledge of what these folks do for a living, because I've hauled them around for most of my working life as an Air Force pilot, and work very closely with them. I know what they do, and I know how they do it, and it's not damaging or destructive. Now, you're not talking about just regular straight-leg infantry folk. You're talking about Special Forces.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well, one of the things they did say was that they would be building roads. They will clear tops of trees. They will clear some trees for the helicopters to land. They need space for their radar equipment to be in there, and that could have some effects because of radioactivity. So I really didn't get a show of hands. How many of you guys are in favor of the military using the Blackwater River Forest for their ops? Yes. A show of hands.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've already made a public comment that I'm for doing both. I believe the Air Force when they say they'll be good stewards of the forest. So I'm going to raise my hand with the understanding that I'm going to trust them until otherwise.
And I think that's what you've heard from everybody.
Ms. Cantu, that was the second town hall meeting. I did attend the first one.
Yeah.
I said that was the second town hall meeting. There was another one 3 or 4 months ago, and I attended that one, and I even spoke.
Yeah. And I'm very open-minded. If they disprove that, then I'll change my position. But based on what I know about Special Forces, now, I'm specifying Special Forces. We're not talking about straight-leg infantry or anything else. Those guys are very, very, very good environmental stewards.
Well, and if I might, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Wallace, you're asking for a vote today that is based on a lot of information that I've heard over the weekend. And, when we talk about them being stealthy and unseen and stuff like that, but yet, when they shoot paintballs, all of them aren't going to hit the target. Some are going to hit trees. So there's going to be a question there for me. And they've talked about a number of smoke bombs. Well, smoke bombs can be seen. That's the purpose of a smoke bomb. So studying what I've heard since the last meeting, and at the last meeting, I was meeting with the Homeowners Association at Avalon Homeowners Association, so I wasn't there. I was at the first one. I'm, like I say, court's still out on this. I can't make a decision right now. Either way, I still am very concerned with the amount of, Eglin is the biggest landmass base of the Air Force in the world. So I would think rearrangement of schedules and working those schedules, we should be able to find a way to pull that off on Eglin, and I still got to do some research on it. So it'd be hard to just put my hand up right now.
Right. One of the issues that I think was actually up on their presentation on the screen was possible increase of fires because of what they would be doing in the forest. And Mr. Lyncher, would you like to weigh in?
I don't think anyone could add anything more than what everybody said. I think based on what the military has stated that they'll do, yes, I'll support it, but we have to monitor, verify, see what goes on.
Well, time is growing short. There were almost 200 people at that meeting the other night, and there was a space for elected public officials to give their points of view, and not one of you were there. And I think that's very sad. I think if you're not going to stand up against it and support the people who are very, very many that do not want this to happen in the forest, you should show up at the meeting and tell them why you do support it, and be able to stand there and look them in the eye and say, I support this. Don't stay home. Don't tell me each and every one of you had something to do that was more important. I would have liked to see each and every one of you there, unless there was an emergency. The view of the public is that they do not want this in their forest. This is the public's forest. So I think if there's another meeting, I think you need to be there to at least tell them why you think they should be allowed to be in the forest. Stand up for what you believe in. Because 200 people showed up the other night to stand there and tell them why they don't want them in the forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to add to this discussion? Please come forward. Yes, sir. If you would turn the light on, that right-hand button, push your right-hand button, and it'll turn a red light on. There you go. And give us your name and address for the record first, please.
My name is Claire Gunther. I live on Cherokee Road. And what our problem is, we built our home in 1977. Of course, we got a permit to build it. And we had a VA loan which stipulated that, you know, if you're in a flood zone, you better get flood insurance, okay? We were assured that we were not in a flood zone. Since that time, though, we have been flooded 2 times. Just recently, maybe 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago. And I understand that it's because they've got a pump north of us that is down. And one of the pipes has collapsed. One of the drain pipes has collapsed. And they're waiting on a bid so the county can get it done. My question is, why can't, the drain was there before they ever put the pump in, they ever put the pond in. Why can't they use the county's equipment to open the drain and until they get their bid or until they get situated to take care of the problem?
May I interrupt you just a second? What is your exact address?
I'm hard of hearing.
Yes, sir. What's your address? What's your street address?
5836 Cherokee Road.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This is an area where we've had some flooding problems. This is the area, and I'm going to ask Mr. Whitfield to give us a current update. But the board approved a significant project to replace a lot of those drainage pipes out there and make other improvements. If you don't mind, I'll ask Mr. Whitfield to give us the details on it.
Yes, I think we're actually opening bids on this one the 17th of this month, Roger, is that correct, on the Pine Blossom drainage? So bids will open the 17th, so we don't think it'll be too much longer that we'll have, hopefully have a contractor in place if the board approves the bid. But we do have a bypass pump in place, and we are running that pump. So we feel like the pump is taking care of any additional water that's not being taken care of by the collapsed culvert. So we are running the pump. We're running the pump regularly, continuously during rainy periods, and then as often as we can, periodically when it's not raining. And so we do have a bypass pump in place. A lot of the water that's going back towards Cherokee would not be picked up by the drainage system, by the ditch and the pipe that is carrying the water to that particular area where the pump is at. I mean, you've got many, many acres that are coming back towards Cherokee that this drainage system has no impact on. And so I'm afraid with the flooding event that the magnitude of the flooding event that we had, I'm afraid you would have had problems regardless of whether the pipe was wide open and working perfectly. But in any case, we were running the pump to keep that drainage flowing, all throughout that event.
Have you contacted any of the available people for help?
What's that?
Come on up here till you're comfortable. Can you hear me okay now?
I can't hear.
All right, is this better? Have you contacted the United Way or any of the FEMA people that have been in town taking applications from people like you for assistance? Have you had physical damage to your home and that kind of thing? Has your home been damaged? Would water get in your house, or are we talking nuisance flooding or in the house flooding?
We had about 18 inches of water going through our carport.
Through the carport, all right.
The sunroom that we have on the back of the house, that was the only place that the water come in.
Okay.
And we had to remove, of course, the carpet and everything.
Right.
And it's got to be replaced.
Yeah.
But the neighbor right next door to us had about 2 to 3 feet in his house. And but what my problem is, when we searched it out when we come to town. In 77, they told us we were not in the flood zone. And like I say, we've had 2 floods since then. So, but I understand that they're working on it just north of us. And I hope they can get something done.
Yes, sir. We will get things done. If you need some assistance, if you need some assistance on your way out, the United Way is up here on the left, and you can speak to Guy Thompson or to Mr. Holly, Mr. Kyle Holly, and the receptionist will help you find those two. And sorry for your trouble. This thing has overwhelmed us all, but don't even use that word. All right. Is there anything else to come before this board?
Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.